Yo Atlas speaking and welcome to part 9 of What If I Was Reincarnated in the One Piece world as a Skypiean. Let the tale begin. Chapter 201, Ancient Weapon. It's been 13 days since I've started working here. I've almost finished fixing the whole thing to an acceptable degree and Vivi has joined me 3 days ago, so things have been easy with her sand soldiers helping me. Vivi can make strong sand soldiers, but one bolt of lightning turns them into glass soldiers. Nice, isn't it? Things have been fun now that Vivi is here since I can take a break every now and then while being able to distract my mind. Also, today is an interesting day as I would test Vivi's compatibility with the damn machine. While the machine isn't fully fixed, it's good enough for a test run. There is a cockpit in this thing, but there is no controller there. At first, I thought, wait, is this shit broken? Even the blueprints disappointed me, but a quick look at the poneglyphs by my Robin-chan revealed that there is actually no need for controllers for this machine as any member of the Nefertiti family can be used as the controller. I finally understand why the government was targeting my poor wife in the canon timeline. Are you ready? I put my hand on Vivi's shoulder. We were inside the cockpit, if this can even be considered that, while Vivi was standing beside me a little nervously. Don't be nervous, I am here. What if this thing drains my hockey dry? It's 3 kilometers long after all. Would I be able to stop midway? Vivi asked, a little scared. The machine operates by channeling the hockey of the driver throughout its body. I can see why she is scared. Nah, no way. It doesn't actually use your hockey to operate. It converts the electromagnetic field in the air into energy and then operates. Hockey is just needed to start the engine and also guide its movements. Theoretically, it shouldn't use that much hockey. Or so that is how it works from my understanding. Ah, Vivi gave him a meek look. All right then. Amon knows the biggest weakness of Logia is hockey and water, but for sand fruit, the latter is more extreme. So to defend against them, the user would need stronger hockey too. So Amon has taught hockey to Vivi personally, though she can't use advanced armament yet. She has strong hockey for a 16-year-old. All right, start. Hearing Amon, he patted her shoulder. Vivi took a deep breath and touched the only thing inside the cockpit, the monitor, and channeled her hockey in it. Zichenke. For the first time in 800 years, the ancient weapon, Pluton, shook as energy rushed throughout its body. Ah, what's happening? However, that wasn't the only thing moving. The walls of the cockpit also moved. They started to clasp Vivi and Amon almost suddenly. Amon frowned as he immediately entered lightning speed. What's this? The blueprints didn't say something like this. He observed the almost frozen world and Vivi's horrified expression. Are the walls trying to crush us? Or, wait, why am I guessing? Amon facepalmed and shook his head. I can just see the future. He mumbled while his eyes flashed bright red briefly as the vision that would have happened seconds later appeared in his mind. He stopped watching the future and raised an eyebrow. Interesting. The walls weren't about to crush Vivi, they were about to merge with her. Similar to Titan transformation from Attack on Titan except for all the blood and muscles making it less horrifying. The machine here would just wrap around her body, only barely tightly, and connect with her brain, thus giving her control over the mechanical earthworm, known as Pluton. Nothing bad at least. Amon decided to not intervene with the merging process and teleported outside the cockpit. He canceled his lightning speed and watched as Vivi's muffled scream entered his ears. Minutes passed, while Amon waited for Vivi to start talking. But instead, the worm's head twitched as it moved upwards, seemingly looking down on Amon. Oi, Vivi, you still alive? Oi, cook, bring me some more spices. Yes, Alice John. Honey Queen had a frown on her face as she observed the blonde girl order Sanji around like her personal lapdog. You don't like her at all, huh? Nami's voice caused her frown to ease up as she shot her a glance. I don't like bratty kids. Honey Queen commented as she went back to eat her food. Meanwhile, the blonde girl finished her meal with a smile on her face. You're lucky that you have such a good cook, you shitty pirates. Or I would have asked my father to blow you all up in the sea. Mahahaha. The blonde girl crackled up. He is very strong. Even your captain won't be able to fight him. Luffy hearing this laughed as well. I would like to see him try. Actually, I would kick his ass for leaving his daughter in the sea either way. Honey Queen was irritated. She barely finished her food and went on the other side of the ship and rested her hands on the railing. She slid her hands in her jacket and took out a packet of cigarettes, but upon opening it, she was disappointed to find it empty. She flicked the packet in the sea with a more irritated look on her face as another pair of hands fell on the railing of the ship. Is there anything bothering you, Honey-chan? Sanji asked as he looked at her with a concerned look on his face. Oh, how nice of him, ugh. Honey Queen internally rolled her eyes, but managed a fake smile and slid her hand inside his jacket, catching Sanji off guard as a blush appeared on his face. Wait, I am not ready for tea. Honey Queen took out a packet of cigarettes from Sanji's coat and looked at him with a casual smile. Ready? What are you talking about? Sanji froze in his spot as Honey Queen lit up the cigarette with a lighter. This is not really my type, but I guess I have to be satisfied with it till I get my hands on the usual. Honey Queen commented as Sanji regained the color of his face. You know, a woman shouldn't smoke. Honey Queen grinned with the cigarette between her teeth. Oh, sorry, but I do what I want, she replied. She wanted to continue with something like, even if that was not the case, I'm not going to listen to the words of a beta male. But she managed to hold herself back, albeit barely. Sanji then asked again, if there is anything, you can talk to me. Honey Queen took a puff as she looked at Sanji's eyes. Sanji was a gentleman, not her type. And unfortunately for the man, even if he was her type, her heart was already taken. Amon called it the Beauty and the Beast effect or something. Honey Queen didn't care. Sanji. Honey Queen just smiled. I just need some alone time. I am fine. Thanks for worrying. Now can you please leave me alone for a while? Sanji nodded after a slight hesitation and walked away. Honey Queen then locked her eyes with the endless horizon. What irritated her was the girl named Alice, but she wasn't the lone cause. It was Amon too. The girl Alice kept bragging about being the daughter of the Marine Fleet Admiral. Honey Queen wouldn't have believed her if not for the necklace on her neck. It had a photo of Sengoku with her. Honey Queen was literally barely holding back from crying. Fucking Fleet Admiral's daughter is in the same ship as her. What the fuck? Honey Queen felt an admiral would come anytime and grab the back of her head and bash it into a mountain. And her lifeline, Amon, hasn't been responding to her messages for weeks. What was he doing? This is an opportunity to kidnap the Fleet Admiral's daughter, but he is nowhere to be seen. What is wrong with that bastard? Honey Queen felt cold sweat gather in her forehead as she slowly took deep breaths in. It was then when her smart dial, a variant of smartphone, rang. The familiar face of Amon almost caused her to curse out loud as she finally felt her forehead warm up. Kacha. Yo. It's been a while. Honey Queen groaned as she looked around to see if anybody was hearing or not. Can I punch you in the face the next time we meet? Not unless you want me to bash your head into a mountain. Chapter 202. Adventures. Heh, that's interesting. So Sengoku has a daughter, huh? But to think that she got kidnapped by some random nobody. How careless. Either way, this is an opportunity, or maybe not. If this was me from a few years ago, I would have rushed there right now and hypnotized her. But currently, I don't really see a reason to. Yes, I could use her against Sengoku in many ways, but that would have only been possible if that man didn't value his duty more than family, just like Garp. I mean, I have gotten thousands of opportunities in my life. I accepted most of them with open arms, yet I couldn't take all the opportunities thrown at me. Who knows, some may even come and bite me in the ass. So I let fate play its game on this one and see where the story will go. I sat on the side of the bed where Vivi's sleeping body kept laying. Her eyes were closed and her breathing was smooth. She seemed fine despite getting her hockey sucked dry. Yup, it was a small miscalculation on my part. The converter of the ancient weapon that absorbs the electromagnetic wave in the air malfunctioned because of my sudden stop of time, so it sucked Vivi dry to keep operating. Would she be fine? King Cobra, who was sitting on a chair, asked with a worry-filled look in his eyes. Of course. I casually smiled. Look at her peaceful smile. How can she not be fine? You see, I am one of the best doctors alive right now, father-in-law. I didn't lie. I really was one of the best doctors alive. I wasn't born a doctor, of course. I worked my way through. Like I have said before, memorizing stuff is a matter of a second for me with my speed. So I had to just buy hundreds of different types of medical books and memorize them. That, compiled with the bit I learned before eating my devil fruit, caused me to reach the top of the world. I was no Vegapunk, but I had enough to hold my own. Speaking of Vegapunk, I have made some new theories on eating multiple devil fruits based on lineage formula. But that can wait for some other day. King Cobra heaved a sigh. I understand. Then I will be going. Today is a busy day. Take care. He got up, nodded at me again, and walked away gracefully. Ring, 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 ring. This was when my smart dial rang and I raised an eyebrow at the caller. It's Hina. She usually calls at the end of the week and lets me know about the things that happened during that week. But today isn't the day. Wonder why she is calling? General POV. That was interesting news. Hina, keep doing your job. Don't hold back against the Straw Hats, but don't go too hard either. Capture if you can even while holding back. If not, then let them go. Amon's voice flew from the other side of the dial as Hina nodded. Yes, sir. As you wish. She said, I need to go now. I can sense someone coming towards my office. Hina cut the call as a knock fell on the door immediately. Vice Admiral Hina, we are ready to depart. Coming. Hina stood up from her seat while wearing a red suit underneath her marine cape and walked away. The rear admiral who was asked to bring Sengoku's daughter back has fled. So Sengoku has decided to choose someone more composed. He deemed that as Hina. Hina didn't mind though, not that she could. Her lord, her savior, had asked her to keep her acting without making any issues. Amon POV. This is good, very good. Hina is assigned to go look for Alice, the girl. But, damn, this world is fucked up. Does the world, or in this sense, the universe, have a consciousness or something? I mean, it's basically creating a hurdle for Luffy so that he can make them his stepping stone and grow stronger. I am seriously considering killing that rubber boy. He is a threat, unlike how I thought before. Time to make a decision. Do I kill him? It won't even take 5 minutes for me to find out where he is right now and kill him and his crew. Previously, there was the problem of Garp, Dragon, and Shanks. But now, I believe I am strong enough to keep standing on my feet. So, do I? No, let's calm down. Luffy is important for my plans and Emu. Who knows, maybe he can nullify whatever bullshit of a power Emu has. I am 70% sure I am wrong, but the remaining 30% is telling me to not make any rash decisions. I am planning to awaken my fruit, so I would be going through a DNA surgery before the War of the Best, but before that, I mustn't make any rash decisions. If Luffy must die, it can wait. Meanwhile, in the New World, Robin and Raki were on a mission. The Sule Kingdom is a country ruled by an old king. His country is pretty close to Fishman Island, but it isn't anything special, so none of the emperors had claimed it as their territory, at least until Amon did. Amon needed a country to use as a base for his juice factories. The current factories he owns now are all located in Paradise, so shipping the goods from one side to another is a pain. So 2 years ago, he claimed the Sule Kingdom using his authority as an emperor of the sea and started to produce different juices under the name Sky Incorporated. Everything was going fine until a neighboring country copied the formula of a few juices and started their own business. Amon didn't care at first, since the other company was too small to even be considered a threat, more so, considering the other party didn't even have enough funds to ship their products all over the world. The problem started from there. Big Mom took a fancy to the juices made by the opponent company. She claimed the neighboring country as her territory and started granting them funds, which elevated them enough to be a problem to Amon. Before Amon could decide what to do with this, while also not ruining his relationship with Big Mom by doing some miscalculations, the king of Sule Kingdom got angry on behalf of Amon, the savior of his country, and decided to declare war with the neighboring country. The result? The king was assassinated. And the Sule Kingdom is not only at war with another country, but there is a chance of a civil war happening soon because of the 3 princes fighting with the princess for the seat of king. Amon laughed hearing this when Robin reported it. He said it sounded strangely like the plot of a third-class fantasy romance novel, though Robin didn't know what he meant. She, whose book reading amount is above 4 digits, hasn't ever heard of something like this. Anyway, now she was here to stop the civil war while also stopping the war going on with the other country. She has to do it with great attendance to not make any mistakes. She should not make Amon worry while he is busy with Pluton. That wouldn't have been so much to ask if she was alone and this girl didn't tag along. I mean, I am bored, have nothing to do. Lifting weights is boring, swinging swords is boring, and training hockey is boring too. Why can't I come with you? As the older sister, it's your duty to look after me. Raki complained while wrapping her hand around Robin's neck. Robin sighed. You know what? Fine. Just don't do anything stupid. I don't want Lucy to come out from his important task to fight Big Mom because of your mistake. Raki grinned with her eyes shining. Hee, don't worry. I would not create any scene. No way. This girl, Robin had a bad feeling about this. Chapter 203, Adventures. New World, Sule Kingdom. At the Western Shipyard, a huge ship the size of a marine warship was getting docked. Gold adorned the ship gorgeously as it shone under the bright sun. People with wings on their backs rode the ship while sailing a flag of the Einherjar pirates. The Einherjar pirates' flag was made of black cloth. It had a white human skull in the middle that was encircled by majestic purple lightning. While the government refers to Amon's people as Einherjar pirates, the group just refers to themselves as Einherjars. To them, they can be pirates if their god wants. They can be marines if their deity orders. They can be revolutionaries if their demon desires. So they avoid adding anything before their group's name, usually. There are 8 battalions among the Einherjars. 6 of them are under full control of the 6 sins. One is a commanderless team waiting for the emergence of the 7th sin, and the last team is composed of people like Rio, Conies, Honey Queen, and Hina, the spies. Without counting the last 2, each of the battalions has a vice leader and multiple captains, since they are an extremely massive group. The actual leaders rarely do anything and mostly spend their time training or messing around. Being one of the leaders of one of the battalions, Raki had a submarine under her name. Amon has officially claimed Zoro's title of the richest man, so he was in no shortage of money. So with alien tech and Germatech fused with Seraph tech, he has made submarines for each battalion. After all, a submarine filled with advanced weapons is always better than a normal warship. Raki wanted to bring that exact submarine with her today, but she was quite disappointed as Robin did not deem that as a good idea for this mission and instead decided to use a normal ship. Thud. So this is the place? Raki jumped down from the ship and looked around. The shipyard was a generic one. The people were generic too. A light of disappointment flashed through her eyes. I thought since this is the only base of Skyink in the New World, there would be special things to see. Raki was wearing a white jacket that reached her knees. The chain was open and revealed the black buttoned-up shirt under it. On her legs, she wore black short pants and high boots. Behind her, Robin slowly walked down a stair made of hands and stood beside Raki. She wore similar clothes, but instead of a white jacket, she wore black. Robin said, "Don't be disappointed yet. The capital is beautiful enough." She added, "Though it's nowhere close to Shandora, so I guess you won't be impressed either." "Huh. Well, guess that works too." Raki sighed. "Anyway, I'm just here to spend some time. It's fine as long as I'm not bored." Raki moved toward Robin and locked her arms around her neck, smiling cheekily. "I am sure it won't be boring with you here, T." Robin used her devil fruit to sprout extra hands from her back and removed Raki's hands from her neck. She surpassed a giggle and shook her head. "I thought you stopped pursuing me?" Raki shrugged. "I was just busy training. Now that I am free, I can mess around a little." She said, "Brother is not around to keep me in the watch too, so I am pretty free-minded right now." It was then as Robin frowned. She ignored Raki's blabbering and focused. Her observation hockey has just noticed something. All of the crowd had their eyes locked on them. While that might not be anything surprising since they are 2 beautiful women exiting from an outstanding ship, she could feel a few shrewd gazes among the admiring and lust-filled gazes. Robin's armament is barely average since Amon didn't really need her to be a fighter, but her observation hockey is better than most. Nowadays, it's almost the norm for people around Amon to have strong observation hockey. But even with that, she was having a hard time focusing on those particular gazes because of the crowd. Robin maintained her smile and whispered to Raki, "Do you see anything out of the ordinary?" She asked, knowing about wisdom eyes. Raki smiled as the 2 of them started walking casually. It's a few well-built men, and a woman, wearing black robes and shades. Suspicious. "Oh, they are following us." "Following, huh?" "Foo-foo, suspicious indeed." Robin grabbed Raki's hands and started walking. Raki used her wisdom eyes to look through walls and search for an empty area. Inside a white room, lots of scientific equipment decorated the boring walls. The room reeked of chemicals with the clear sound of different chemicals boiling apparent. In front of the computer sitting in the middle of the room, a little boy was sitting on a comfy chair with his eyes locked on the screen while a tall man stood beside him. "So how does this work?" the little boy, Karna, asked, looking at the screen that had a line of DNA, or as the scientists of One Piece like to call, Lineage Factor, dancing on it. "Like I get the gist of it, but the factor is supposed to be extremely fragile. How can we artificially change it?" The person standing beside him, Vinsmoke Judge, crossed his arms at this. "That's the mystery. If we knew that, creating devil fruits that don't even have the general devil fruit weakness wouldn't be a problem." He then said with a slight pride in his voice, "Though for your knowledge, I have almost achieved it." This caused Karna to widen his eyes as Judge grinned. "I can create artificial abilities. 3 of my children's lineage were changed to a point where they gained special abilities. A poison body, an electricity ability, and an energy controlling ability. He added, the problem is, according to my formula, only a fetus who is inside their mother's womb can survive lineage manipulation. An adult or even a child would die immediately. Karna then moved his gaze at the screen again and turned the page to show a picture of a devil fruit. If that's the case, how does devil fruits work? We know that devil fruits change a person's lineage factor, but contrasting to what your research says, why can people of any age eat a fruit and get special abilities? Judge frowned and said in a slightly annoying tone, that's what we are researching. He added, from Caesar Clown's research that Lord Amon has gotten us, we are aware that, unlike my way of doing things, in Caesar's way, directly altering an adult's lineage would immediately kill him, and while doing that to children would also result in death. It would happen slowly. It has the same result. For example, Caesar has tried making some human children into giants by altering their factor, but none of them lived past a certain age. He added, still, while his research on making artificial giants has helped us close to zero, his research on slimies has helped us a lot. Well, calling it his research would be incorrect as the first model was made by Vegapunk. So can the slimies change the so-called lineage without any backlash? Karna asked, his eyes filled with curiosity of an extreme caliber. Judge glanced at Karna for a second. He couldn't understand why his lord had asked him to share their research with this child. He daren't question Amon's judgment, but this still bewildered him. In the end, he gave up. He shook his head internally and opened his mouth. No, not really. With my formula, you can change a fetus lineage, but when he grows up, he would still be able to eat a devil fruit without getting his body exploded. It's the same with Caesar's giant children. While they are still alive, they can still eat a devil fruit without dying. But if we use a slimy to change a person's lineage, the person would die immediately when he eats another devil fruit. Or in this case, if the person has already eaten a fruit before. So since Lord Amon has already eaten a devil fruit, using this method won't work. Karna hummed, oh, yeah, I almost forgot. We are researching this so that we can alter Big Brother's lineage with ores, while also not making him grow in size or die outright, right? Judge was almost angry at the kid for forgetting about the main reason for this talk. But he just took a deep breath. Yes. Looking down on the floor, Karna then tilted his head. Even the best scientist alive, Vegapunk, couldn't do it? A strange light flashed upon his eyes. Is this an opportunity to become the best? Fine, then I will do it myself. Chapter 204, Journey. Using her wisdom eyes, Raki guided Robin to an empty area where people weren't around. It didn't even take seconds before they were surrounded by people clad in black. Yo, you guys sure you're not targeting the wrong bunnies? Raki stated with her hand resting on one of the 2 swords that rested on either side of her waist. Unlike before, she doesn't use Katetsu 2 and 3 anymore. She rather uses Shiki's twin blades that are both one of the 21 great grade swords. Katetsu 2 went to Tsumi and Katetsu 3 went to Brook, and they haven't shown any signs of being cursed by the swords. At least Tsumi hasn't. Noticing Brook being cursed is a bit hard. Among the 7 people surrounding them, one of the fragile-looking ones stepped forward. The person raised their hand towards their robe and pulled it down, revealing the face of a beautiful light blue-haired girl. I sincerely apologize to greet you like this. I had no other choice. The girl said, I am the first princess of Sule Kingdom, Sule Ula. It's a pleasure meeting you. She curtsied by tugging her gown with a dignified look on her face. Robin stopped Raki from drawing her sword and revealed a professional smile. I have met you before, Princess Ula. But would you mind explaining your actions? We were supposed to be received by your younger brother, Prince Lucid, correct? The princess thinned her lips. You're correct, but I have my reasons. Oh, and what might they be? This morning, I have gathered that my brother, Lucid, has made a deal with the neighboring Yashuk Kingdom. From what I've gathered, Yashuk Kingdom has promised him the throne if he manages to kill you, Miss Robin. She said, looking at Robin's huge frown. I am afraid if you'd chosen to ride with my brother, you would have been assassinated. I see. She went silent before continuing, but do you have any evidence? How can I trust that you haven't been offered the same offer as your brother? Robin started, but she was interrupted by Raki. Hey, come on, Robin. Look how beautiful she is. Do you believe she can lie? Raki put an arm around Robin's shoulders while her eyes examined the curves under the robe the princess was wearing. She looked so genuine about it. Robin wanted to say something, but before she could, Raki added, and besides, A small smile formed on her lips as she locked eyes with Ula. Even if the one wanting to kill you is the princess, not the prince, the changes that create are close to zero. Robin looked at her as the sudden realization hit her. Raki smirked. They want to assassinate you, so they have prepared people strong enough for you. But they didn't expect me to tag along, did they? A small chuckle left her as she stared at the princess' eyes with her snake-like golden pupils. I want to see anyone even try touching your hair. It doesn't matter if it's the prince or princess. I would like to see how they stop me from burning this kingdom if something happens to you. Kill Robin. Do they have a death wish? Raki is usually sarcastic and laid back, but this was not one of those situations. She didn't say those lines because she would be sad at Robin's death. She said it because, if anything happened to Robin, Amon would destroy everyone related to it. Robin was a valuable asset. Her death would be a blast to Amon's plans and professional life. Not only would he lose the only person who can read the poneglyphs, but he would also lose the person who's been managing all the business he owns by herself. Of course, new people can be assigned, but it would still be a bothersome thing to do. Raki believed, if Amon suffered that great of a loss at this point of his life when he is very close to taking over the world, he would not only go berserk, he might even destroy the world with his own hands. Of course, that's what she was assuming, because that's what she would do. She assumed her brother would do the same. Raki doesn't know Amon's final goal, but what she does know is, Amon wants to gain power. So much power that it shouldn't be possible to gain on this planet, so he wants to travel to space, seize more powers from different species inhabiting this universe, and finally reach the top of the food chain. But his obsession didn't end with power alone. He was obsessed with control. He doesn't only want absolute power, he also wants absolute control over everything. The Raki didn't know why. It's almost as if he had a past that she isn't aware of, a past that had changed his mind to become that of a control freak that lives today. With that obsession of his, now that he is so close to taking a big step and gaining control over this whole planet, she believed he would go on a killing spree if a valuable asset such as Robin was to die. She turned her gaze from the horizon outside the window and looked at Robin conversing with the princess named Ula. They entered the steam engine carriage that Ula brought and went to the capital. Miss Ula, what more information did you gather? Robin asked. If your information network is strong enough to gather information on my attempted assassination, you must have more knowledge, right? Ula seemed hesitant as she sighed. Truthfully, I am not brave enough to say it. It's fine. I can at least assure you some mere words won't make me angry. Not unless they are about a certain someone. Robin stated calmly. Then, the princess said, it seems the Big Mom pirates are the actual culprit behind this. Since the Yashu Kingdom is their territory, it seems they ordered the assassination. As for why I was unwilling to say this, I have heard Emperor Amon has a good relationship with Big Mom, so I was quite unsure if this information is correct or not. Robin frowned hearing this. Is that so? She paused. But it doesn't make sense. Lucy once told me how Big Mom was interested in me and even offered a big sum if he would agree to trade me. I don't think she would want to assassinate me. A silence fell in the carriage as only the sound of the engine was present there. Well, maybe try connecting the dots in another way? Raki broke the silence. Maybe Big Mom wants to fake the assassination and kidnap you instead? That way, brother would assume you were killed by the Yashu Kingdom. He would direct his rage at them. In the meantime, the real culprit, Big Mom, would still be able to maintain a good relationship with brother? After all, I don't even think she wants to go to war with another emperor. This caught both Ula and Robin off guard. Now it was clear as water. It is certainly a possibility, indeed. Robin made a thinking pose. That's right. More so, when Lucy would realize that I have been killed and would want to avenge me, Big Mom would lend a helping hand by destroying the Yashu Kingdom, her own territory, to solidify her friendship and form some form of alliance. Robin's eyes went wider the more she talked and realized the weight of her own words as she looked at Raki. Raki, you're a genius. Raki casually shrugged. She was quite smart. Just copying Amon for 20 years of her life was enough for that to be true. She played around most of the time, so people assumed otherwise. Robin was one of them, so this was quite a surprising situation for her. The princess, Ula, then parted her lips. So, bang. But the sound of a gun firing cut her. Immediately after the sound was heard, time froze for Robin and Ula. The window's glass of the carriage shattered as a bullet rushed towards Eula's head. The said princess didn't even know her death was this close to her, and she wouldn't know either, since a beam of light rushed towards the bullet at light speed and vaporized it in an instant. Hina. Time returned to normal as Ula covered her ears and released a squeak. The carriage came to an abrupt stop after another gunshot was sounded. Ula and Robin could only assume the reason being the diver's death. "Are you all right?" Ula looked up to find Raki looking at her with an indifferent look on her face while her finger was pointed at the window. A line of smoke was coming out her finger, her palm slightly green and her nails long, indicating her partial Zoan transformation. "It's a bunch of weaklings, no need to get worked up." While Robin placed a hand on Eula's shoulder to calm her down, Raki stood up from her seat and pushed the door of the carriage and walked out casually. Outside, a black carriage slowly stopped as 5 men with guns walked out. A skinny middle-aged man with a bald head and a cigarette in his mouth raised an eyebrow while casually playing with the revolver on his palms. This chick looks familiar." "Scratch that. She looks very familiar." After narrowing his eyes for a second, his eyelids jumped up as a horrified expression took over his face. "Wait, is that—" Pew. He wasn't able to finish as a yellow beam of light rushed towards his face, blinding the whole place with the sound of an explosion traveling far and wide. Boom. Chapter 205, Adventurous Journey. "So what should I do?" Raki asked with a hint of seriousness in her tone. Wynn caressed her hair while her eyes were locked below. Her golden serpent-like eyes had a predatory gaze to them right now. Her lips were dry because of the wind as she waited for an answer to her question. "Let me think." The dial in her hand sounded out. It was Amon's voice that went silent for about 3 minutes before a laugh came out of it. I would have loved to show her what it means to target people useful to me. But certainly, this is not that time." Raki deadpanned at the word useful. She found it quite odd that he didn't even try to hide the fact that he didn't care about Robin, at least when around her. She sometimes wondered what Robin would do if she ever found out. Whatever. Raki shrugged and asked, "So what do I do? Lay back and let them keep trying to kill Robin?" Obviously not. Instead of a laugh, she heard a soft chuckle this time. "You didn't call me because you wanted to lay back, did you?" Raki simply smirked as the voice continued. "You got the green card. Do whatever you want. Destroy the enemy kingdom if you have to. I would like to see Big Mom demanding compensation." "Fantastic." Raki revealed a toothy grin. "But what if Big Mom comes after me?" "What? You scared?" "What? No." Raki paused. "I am asking if I can kill her or not." Sure. Just don't get yourself killed. If you do, don't expect me to revive you or something. I don't have actual godly powers yet." "Higi, you'd have them one day. Anyway, bye, I got work to do." "Gotcha." Raki's grin widened as she breathed in. While wind brushed past her hair, her wings flapping perpendicularly, Raki looked down on the capital city of Yashu Kingdom. It was time for a beautiful explosion. While a war was brewing between 2 emperors, on the other side of the sea, Sengoku's hair had started turning to gray from black. He was super worried about his daughter after all. First of all, he can't make her disappearance known to the public. If he does, the emperors and revolutionary would make a move. That would be the worst-case scenario. So he has sent Hina, one of the more component vice admiral. Yet, he was disappointed to find she also doesn't have any leads yet. Of course, he was a professional man. He wouldn't just blame Hina for not having a lead yet. But this was concerning. If the kidnappers were normal thugs, they would just think of her words as bluff and laugh it off. But if they are higher up in the scale, then they would not let this chance slide. In that case, they would have contacted him by now. So nothing made sense to Sengoku right now. What did the kidnappers want? Ring, ring, ring. It was when the din mushy on the table rang. He heaved a sigh and straightened his back. He picked up the call and was surprised to find it was Hina. "Sir, we have found a lead to Miss Alice's current whereabouts." Sengoku's eyes grew wide. "It's quite unbelievable." "All right, whatever it is, say it. I don't like these types of build-ups." Sengoku ordered, to which Hina hummed. "She is." A sigh came from the other side. "My subordinates have spotted her with the newbie, Straw Hat Pirates. Vice Admiral Garp's grandson. We dash." Hina didn't get to say anything, since Sengoku had already rushed out of his office. His fist clenched as he walked with heavy steps. "That's it. Your grandson is not only messing up your life, but mine too. We need to talk, Garp." Needless to say, it was a tiring day for Garp. Gaspard is a former Marine turned pirate. He has recently become a warlord of the sea 1 year ago because there were 3 seats vacant and the Marines were desperate. Unlike when he was a pirate, after becoming a warlord, he usually spends his time leisurely on an island just a few kilometers away from Alabasta. Having eaten a logia fruit, There are only a few people who can be a threat to him, so his job has been relatively easy. More so, since the Sky Emperor considered all the islands around Alabasta his territory, pirates were more reluctant to cause problems here. So he was a little annoyed to hear today's report from one of his minions. It's a newbie from East Blue called Monkey D. Luffy. His minion said. He's here with his whole crew, causing trouble. The first thing he did was to beat up some of our men who were enjoying their time with women at a bar. Our men are angry about it. They are demanding you to take action, boss. Gaspard listened to the name of the culprit with a frown on his face. Monkey D. Luffy, you say? Being a former Marine, it didn't take him long to realize why the name sounded so familiar. While the Marine hero Garp was more known by his title, Gaspard knew his actual name too. Is this kid related to Garp? He fell into silence. While he wanted to deal with the kid right now, kill him even, now that he knew Luffy might be related to the strongest man Gaspard has ever seen, he was reluctant. Well, I can capture him at least. Maybe by handing him over to the Marines I can even earn some gifts. Gaspard considered for a moment before nodding to himself. He stood up from his seat. Take me there. He ordered his minion, who nodded in affirmation. Gaspard started walking in front of his minion for a power play while his mind was lost in the possibilities of what he could obtain from Garp by using Luffy as a negotiation chip. Hey, Luffy. Nami caught up to Luffy and followed him as Luffy walked with a stoned face. You shouldn't have beaten them up, you know? Luffy immediately retorted back. What, Nami? You mean I should have watched them have their way with those miserable girls? No, it's just Dash, Nami sighed. This is a warlord's territory, and they were the warlord's people. Beating them up here is like hurting a lion's cub in its cave. We could have ignored them, obviously. Not like we can save every unfortunate person in this world anyway. Unlike usual, Nami talked in a soft tone. She knew she sounded selfish, she knew Luffy wasn't gonna listen to her. She also knew that what Luffy did wasn't anything bad, so she wasn't confident enough to raise her voice on him. Luffy stopped in his tracks and looked at Nami's eyes. Nami, if someone tried to force his way with you, and I was close by, do you believe I would be able to ignore it? Nami froze in her spot. That Dash, she tried to reason something in her head, but she was speechless. From far, Honey Queen watched the scene with a deeply hidden disdain in her eyes. With that thought process, why is he a pirate? The day he meets someone like Amon is the day he will die. Either way, she needed to report the development to Amon. Offending a warlord would surely make him come out, so Amon needs to know. Guys, she called, breaking the awkward silence. I need to pee. It's an emergency. She blushed a little and turned around. I would look for you, so no need to wait for me. Goodbye. Chapter 206. Oh, shit. What? Big Mom shouted at Parasparrow, who froze briefly. Parasparrow coughed in an attempt to release the tension and said, It's true, Mama. The entirety of Yashu Kingdom was destroyed in less than an hour. The cause was multiple explosions all around the kingdom. Parolan. Big Mom was sitting on a throne with her hands resting on the throne's hands. They were crushed as Big Mom clenched her fist. Her eyes were fiery as she glared at her son. Who did it? Yashu Kingdom was the supplier of all the sweet juices. Who destroyed it? Sweat dripped down Parasparrow's chin. It felt as if that drop of water was ice freezing his body. It's that snarky girl. Sky Emperor's sister with the snake-type mythical Zoan fruit. Big Mom blinked. It finally clicked her. Oh, is it about the assassination we ordered? Her frown deepened, but her furious expression had lessened. She knew being angry with something that concerned Amon wasn't a good idea. Wasn't only Nico Robin supposed to come to the Sule Kingdom? Why is that girl there too? It was an unexpected development. Big Mom paused. So they found out I sent assassins after Nico Robin? I don't think so, Parasparrow answered. They have found out that the Yashu Kingdom has been sending assassins after them, but it's highly unlikely for them to realize that we are the main culprit, he said. They probably got angry that Nico Robin was constantly getting assassination attempts and somehow linked it with the Yashu Kingdom, Parolan. Big Mom's lips stretched to her ears. Mama, this is a good outcome. We can force Amon to hand over Raki in compensation for this destruction. Of course, he won't hand over his sibling. People of the Blue Sea didn't know Raki wasn't blood-related to Amon, so they tend to overvalue her worth. So we would demand Nico Robin in exchange. With the threat of a war happening, he is bound to agree. Mama. Parasparrow sighed internally, seeing her anger vanish. Parasparrow. Big Mom called. Go and call Amon. Tell him we need to talk. Parasparrow smiled awkwardly. Mama, I have tried connecting with him already. I was unable to. And while I tried connecting with his subordinates, I found that Sky Emperor is busy with something important and won't be available for months. He won't be available for months? Big Mom slammed her throne. Send Katakuri to the Sule Kingdom. I would like to see how he doesn't come out when his sister gets abducted. Days later, Charlotte Katakuri was in his ship going towards the Sule Kingdom, an island close to Fishman Island. According to his mother's order, he is supposed to abduct the girl named Raki. She has a bounty of 1.4 billion bellies, 400 million higher than himself. Did it make him doubt the result of his mission? Not at all. He was instead looking forward to this. Last time he was shocked to find the Sky Emperor having future sight. That alone made him realize Amon was on a whole other level than himself. But this girl can't be that far from him, right? He would find out soon anyways. He looked at the island far from here. It's been a week since he has left for this island, and he is finally here. Let's see how fun this mission is going to turn out. Katakuri walked away from the deck of the ship to the cabin with heavy steps. Meanwhile, Lala, Raki was playing with her smart dial while humming gaily. Damn, these game thingies are real fun. Raki was laying in her bed. Her lower body was covered by a blanket while her torso was naked. She played a game named Super Calgara Brothers that was clearly inspired from somewhere. Smart dials are basically smartphones stuffed in a seashell. Only the Sins and some high-ranking individuals in the Einherjars have access to this thing, since manufacturing such advanced tech for the public would be a bad idea. She glanced beside her with a cheeky smile on her face. She turned on the camera on her dial and leaned towards the blue-haired naked girl sleeping beside her. I wonder how brother would react to this, hee. She brought the other girl close to her body and was about to capture the image before freezing briefly. This is a bad idea. He might steal Ula from me just to spite me, that fucker. She closed the camera app and put the phone down with a sore face. She glanced at the princess of the Sule Kingdom beside her, lying naked, and yawned. She is much better than that bitch Vivi. Princess should be like Ula instead. While Raki was interested in Ula, she didn't plan to make a move on her yet. She would most likely fight Big Mom soon, after all. But when she flirted with Ula a little, the girl easily gave in. Though mostly because she assumed pleasing Raki would make her get the throne easily. Meh, just because I slept with her doesn't mean she gets to become the queen. Fuck politics, I would let Robin handle it. Knock, knock, knock. Raki heard multiple knocks fall on the door as she looked in that direction. Her golden eyes penetrated the walls and saw who it was. Come in. The door creaked open as Robin walked inside the room. She froze as her eyes landed on the bed. Her gaze shifted between the sleeping princess and Raki, who was on her dial. Sigh, Robin rubbed her forehead after a sigh. Get up, you have a job to do. What is it? Raki glanced at Robin. Big Mom Pirate's ship has been located. Finish what you started. Oh. Raki sat up. Big Mom is here? Damn, that's late. No, it's Charlotte Katakuri. It's bold of you to assume an emperor would come so casually, Robin said. Raki's face fell in disappointment. What? She sent a weakling after me. She fell on her back again. I'm not going. Waste of time, bleh. Robin turned around. Ugh, that's it. I am telling Lucy you have been fucking around instead of doing your job. Hey, wait. I will go. Raki groaned and got up. Picked up her white shirt and wore it on her torso. The buttons barely held her chest. Then she walked out after grabbing her swords. Fuck, I will make this Katakuri pay for this. An arm should be enough, or do I take his legs? Chapter 207, Nami. Damn it. Honey Queen cursed as she typed something in her smart dial rapidly. She tried contacting Amon, but he didn't pick her call. So instead, she was writing him a long message about what happened. Done. She tapped send, then waited in anticipation as a check mark had been put beside her message indicating that it had successfully been sent, causing her to heave a sigh. I did my job. It's not my fault if he doesn't see it. Honey Queen shrugged and put the dial in her pocket. Now, where did they go? Honey Queen concentrated her observation haki to search the whole island while a frown found its place on her face. She opened her eyes and sighed. Ah, shit. Honey Queen quickly jumped in the air using Jeppo and kicked the air fast, diving towards the east of the island where the presence of Straw Hats was clashing with a few other men. Damn that rubber bastard. Cough. A dark-skinned bulky man coughed out his saliva as he fell on his back. Haha. As expected of Luffy. Go, Luffy go. A man with a long nose, cheered from the sidelines. Zoro and Sanji were wandering around the eastern part of the island. Just like Luffy, they had also gotten themselves into a fight. But unlike Luffy, Zoro and Sanji were losing. Needles and Shiraya Basket, two of Gaspard's trusted men, were fighting Zoro and Sanji. Meanwhile, the other minions were keeping Usopp busy. This was the situation until Luffy and Nami reached this place. Luffy waited at first since he didn't want to take out the people who his crewmates were fighting, but after Needles defeated Sanji, he had to jump forward. That's when the dark-skinned bulky man jumped in front of Luffy and was one-shot by him. Back to the present, Luffy eyed Needles. His gaze was sharp as he prepared to attack using his Goma Goma no pistol. But before he could do so, a heavy voice interrupted him. "Now, why don't you calm down, Straw Hat?" A person walked towards the fighters with heavy steps. "Or your grandpa would be sad at your death." "Huh?" Luffy turned towards the voice and glared at him. "Who are you, you huge head?" "It's Gaspard, but that's not important. Why don't you sit still and let me capture you instead?" Gaspard started and walked in front of Needles. "I am sure you wouldn't want to fight a Logia user." Nami gasped from behind Luffy. "Luffy, that's the warlord Gaspard. He is super strong. Don't let him catch you off guard." Ignoring Nami, Luffy frowned at the word Logia. He raised his fist at Gaspard instead. Wanting to get a practical answer, he punched forward. Luffy's punch rushed towards Gaspard's chest and went through his body as if it was made of tofu, making Luffy frown. "Ah, attacking me even though I wasn't done talking. Surely your grandfather didn't do a good job in teaching you proper manners." Gaspard blurted, all to Luffy's annoyance. It was at this moment when Gaspard raised his fist as it morphed into an axe made of green candy. "Let me show you the powers of my candy fruit." He kicked the ground and reached for Luffy in an instant. His hand blurred and went towards Luffy's hand. He didn't want to kill Luffy, but cutting a limb off should be fine, right? Luffy was caught off guard because of the speed. He nonetheless raised his fist to counterattack since dodging seemed improbable. He wanted to punch Gaspard's face before the axe could have hit him, but at this rate, even though his punch would land on Gaspard's face, the axe would also land on his arm, severing it in the process. It was then whoosh, as a leg appeared between Luffy and the axe, and immediately the axe hit the leg. But rather than being cut off, a clink sound resounded throughout the place instead. "My, is that all your candy can do?" the owner of the leg said, a smirk on her face. "So weak that even my honey body is solid enough to block it, you limp dick bastard." Gaspard's eyes became bloodshot at this. "You, shut up, pig. Don't you see the queen talking?" The blonde woman, Honey Queen, smirked as her raised leg moved like a snake and wrapped around Gaspard's arm in an instant. "What are you?" Gaspard was interrupted as he felt a strong force pressing his arm hard. The next second, sound of multiple bones breaking sounded. "Ugh, you witch." Honey Queen chuckled darkly. "She can solidify her Logia body, something very few Logia bodies can achieve. In Skypia, we had a hard time getting our hands on this. You better be careful with it." Judge said sternly to Karna, who cracked up. Hey, this is fascinating. This Caesar guy is better than I thought. He can never make the proper thing, but what he made is good enough." Karna commented while inspecting a 20-meter-tall yellow-skinned giant humanoid body. Judge crossed his arms and maintained his gaze to keep the boy in check. While thinking that Caesar, he has improved a lot since the last time we crossed paths. Because of the deal he made with Daffy 2 years ago, Amon can use Caesar every now and then. Obviously, with such an opportunity, Amon didn't forget to threaten Caesar with his life if he doesn't listen to any command. In canon, Caesar had made the numbers for the beast pirates. The numbers were once humans whose lineage were changed based on an Or's DNA, as far as Amon could recall. So he has asked Caesar to specifically notify him the moment he progresses with this experiment, which he did a few days ago. Since Amon plans to change his DNA without dying, even more so to make it like an Or's, this body of a number that Caesar had sent would help a lot. The main problem of dying when changing his lineage would be gone with this. But the other problem is the subject can have too much change in his appearance. A giant body, a pair of horns, yellow skin, and ridged teeth. But the main drawback is that the subject becomes brain dead and loses most of their intelligence. Amon is the type who would do anything for power, so becoming an ugly giant wasn't really that much of a problem for him, more so since he can freely alter his size with his fruit. The only drawback in appearance would have been his ugly face, but he was happy to accept that for power. However, the bigger problem was the intelligence part. He isn't willing to give up his intelligence for any power boost. Karna stopped circling the body and looked at Judge's eye. "So our job has been shortened a little. Now our current goal is to make sure the subject doesn't lose any intellect, correct?" Brother Amon said he doesn't mind looking like an ugly pig. So I guess we should focus on the brain first. Judge sighed. Let me tell you again. Don't mess things up for me. I don't want my lord to look like a pig even if he says he won't mind. You get it. Sule Kingdom. Charlotte Katakuri, is it? Raki asked, looking ahead where a tall man with scarf covering half of his face was standing while leaning against the wall. I thought Big Mom would come now that her favorite juice factory has been destroyed. But I guess the rumor about her being a sweet fanatic was a lie. You wouldn't want her to come after you, trust me, Katakuri said in a low but prominent voice while staring Raki in the eye. Raki was wearing skin-tight jeans and a white shirt with loose buttons that was ragged because of her nightly activities. She scratched the back of her head with an annoyed look on her face. Oh, come on. Stop with that attitude of yours. Katakuri stayed silent until the end. Raki groaned and took out both her swords. All right, fine. Let's just finish this quickly. I'm a very busy woman. Whoosh. Kicking the ground, Raki vanished from sight. Chapter 208. Oop. Whoosh. Raki kicked the ground, used Saru, and vanished from sight. Well, from the sight of most people present at least. Charlotte Katakuri, the best observation hockey user after Amon, could clearly see her movements. Raki's twin swords dashed towards Katakuri's head, but Katakuri himself didn't move from his spot. He used his master-level control over his devil fruit to mold his machi body as the two blades immediately went through his neck. On the other hand, Raki's golden eyes shone like a pair of Sharingans. She could see the movements of Katakuri's neck as it separated from the rest of the body, letting the swords flow to the other side. Unfortunately, while Raki's eyes are fast enough to see this, her body wasn't fast enough to change the trajectory of her sword and hit him on another spot. Raki kicked the ground backwards and jumped back. Interesting, she said. It's just like brother. You have great control over your fruit, huh, Katakuri? You're not as incompetent as I thought you are. Katakuri didn't reply. He just narrowed his eyes. Just now, that was close. Her blade moved almost as fast as his ability to control his body. If he didn't have his future sight by his side, it was no mystery that he would have been cut before separating his neck. I have to take her seriously. She has the power to back up her bounty, Katakuri decided. The next second his eyes shined red. Vum. He watched multiple futures with different outcomes, every future based on any attack he chooses. He was again surprised at how the girl in front of him held her spot against each of his attacks. Still, deciding on an attack, Katakuri raised his hand while his forearm got covered in bluish-ink dark armament and became like a balloon as he threw it forward at a terrible speed, making his arm stretch far and reach Raki. Katakuri was a very fast man, fast enough for his attack to be unavoidable for a Gear 4th Luffy. Very few people in this world would be able to dodge his attacks, very few. Whoosh. The fist flew at Raki's face, but instead of dodging, which she could do, Raki tossed her swords and raised her own fist as green scales and fur appeared in her whole arm. No sooner had her arm turned green. Reddish-ink dark armament hockey covered her arm. With a breath in, she punched forward as her fist came into contact with Katakuri's hockey-coated fist. Bam! Intense shockwaves were released from the impact of the punch. While Raki's arm was firm, Katakuri's whole arm was flickering like water. Katakuri was pushed back as he stumbled upon his legs and almost tripped. He retreated his arm and glared at Raki using his future sight. Vum. His vision returned to the present as he realized he had made a mistake. He saw Raki's fist just in front of his face. He was caught off guard as the fist hit him in the face and threw him back. Katakuri clenched his jaw tight and then spat out a tooth. She is strong, he acknowledged to himself. I have to be careful. Meanwhile, I hate Future Sight so much. The users of Future Sight just keeps dodging all attacks. Feels good to finally have landed an attack on you, you machi bastard. Raki cracked her knuckles as she stepped on the tooth Katakuri spat out. I can see why you'd want to fight Mama instead. Katakuri finally said something. Though you're still far from beating me. If this becomes a stretched-out battle, you'd clearly win, so I should quicken the pace. Katakuri's body split in two as a trident came out of him. He grabbed the middle of the rod and kicked the ground. Blurring towards Raki, he jabbed his spear forward at Raki's abdomen. Chit. Naturally, the defense in untransformed form is lower than her prime defense, so Katakuri didn't have to use Conqueror's coating to penetrate Raki. Oh. Raki looked down on her stomach with a raised eyebrow. This hurts less than the time brother hit me in the crotch. Katakuri frowned. He tightened his grip and tried to spin the trident inside Raki's stomach, but before he could succeed, Raki's hand landed on above his. Nah, that would probably hurt more. I am not up for it. Raki shoved her palm vertically towards Katakuri's face, but his face just parted in two as he jumped backwards. Raki clicked her tongue. Tisk, you're not that strong, but you're annoying. Katakuri didn't answer and just observed her, seeing which Raki rolled her eyes. Okay, this is getting boring. Let's finish this quickly. Raki took the spear out of her stomach while the gap on her abdomen started to heal very slowly. She then took a deep breath. I don't like using this form, but fuck it. Then, just like her left arm, Raki's right arm also started to transform along with her whole body. First green scales covered her body, then green feathers sprouted out of the scales. Her hair also changed. It turned golden blonde, just like her eyes. In the end, a pair of red feathers sprouted out of her forehead like horns while her fangs became more pronounced. This was the feathered serpent, form second. Katakuri was on full alert. He wanted to attack her right now, but the danger she posed in his observation haki was too high, so he settled to trust his observation haki and not attack yet. Huff. Raki smoked out a breath. Her breath was as soft as her feathers, while her gaze was wise, unlike before. She looked at him with a bored gaze, seeming like a person who has seen everything. It was the gaze of a person who knows everything, a person who has seen it all, a person who can say, hey, I am omniscient, and everyone would believe them. Raki was in that state, an ambiguous form where she was seeing the world differently, more wisely. With her deep gaze, she watched Katakuri observe the future, again and again, finding ways to defeat her. Katakuri kept searching. Every choice he would make, a different future would have happened. But in all the future, he didn't see a way to win. Not with his current strength. If he became a mochi donut wheel and rushed towards her, she would rip him apart. If he threw jelly beans at her, they would just bounce off her skin. If he created mochi hands in the hair and punched at her, she would just destroy them all. If he would try to escape, she would kill him using her swords. But if he keeps standing like this, thinking what to do then? A saturated voice left Raki's lips. She silently tilted her head and channeled her powers. Soon, many small light gates opened all over the battlefield, surrounding Katakuri in a blinding light. Weapons such as swords, spears, gauntlets, chains, katana, cannons, guns made of light appeared out of the gates, pointing at Katakuri. Behold, my gate of Babylon, Raki mumbled in a dazed voice. Surrender, Katakuri. Cut your arm off, and you can live for today. Raki seemed strange. Her tone was calm, with no emotion present. But she still spoke like her normal self, albeit in a completely different tone. Katakuri had a frown on his face as he was done calculating all the possibilities of this match. This is a sudden way to die, he thought. Still, I am always prepared for death. This was not out of the realm of possibilities either. In the end, he breathed out and straightened his back. I won't surrender. If I have to die, then it would be filled with pride. Oh, Raki blinked. After a short silence, she raised her hand. Then goodbye. The weapons rushed out of the gate, very fast, lightspeed fast. Katakuri saw them all coming. His future sight could see it all. He could clearly see how a spear would hit his thigh. He could see how a bullet would hit him in the arm. He could see how a sword would cut one of his arms off. He would see how a scythe would cut his head off. He could see them all, but Charlotte Katakuri wasn't fast enough to dodge light. Chick, chuck, chick, chuck. Weapons of light penetrated Charlotte Katakuri's body as he stood in his spot, blood trailing down his body. Slowly, as he breathed out his last air. Meanwhile, oh, he is dead. Raki looked at the man standing on his feet with her head tilted. Should I have done that? It was then as she blinked multiple times. Her feather disappeared, her scales disappeared, as her body returned to normal. The fuck? Her voice returned to normal too. Raki can't control her hybrid form. Something happens to her wisdom eyes that makes her perspective on the world a little different and her mind a little numb. She doesn't use that form often, because of that particular side effect. But since she was getting annoyed at Katakuri's constant dodges, she was forced to use it. The result? Oops, I wasn't supposed to kill him. Katakuri is dead. Welp, peace was never an option. Amon would laugh at this. Chapter 209. Unfortunate. Things got a little messed up on her end, Raki realized after coming out of her daze. This is bad, right? It probably is. But, She stood over the body of Katakuri that had fallen on its back after being riddled by the countless weapons made of light. The weapons had vanished, dissipated in the atmosphere, so Katakuri's body was a mess of holes. It's been around a month since brother went at Alabasta, Raki muttered. Let's hope he doesn't come back before Big Mom comes for revenge, hee. Raki recalled Big Mom was called the world's strongest hag, but in truth, she was basically the strongest among all the women too. This meant something, an opportunity. While Raki's primary ambition was to follow her brother, she also hoped to be renowned as the strongest swords, man and strongest woman in general, too. Because only by being the strongest, Raki would be able to stand beside her brother, or so she believed. Unfortunately, the swordsman thing can be done later. Let's kill Big Mom for now, hee. Big Mom was the strongest for a reason. A reason that Raki wouldn't be able to overcome anytime soon. Let's go. It took less than an hour for the news to reach Big Mom. Unsurprisingly, her rage was beyond the roof. While she didn't love most of her children, Katakuri wasn't among them. Other than that, he was also her second in command. His death would deliver the Big Mom pirates a big hit. Paraspero. The hockey of a supreme king had burst out of her. All the civilians and most of her own children had already lost their consciousness. The snake dared to bite back. Time to be beheaded. Charlotte Lin, aka the strongest woman alive right now, was enraged. For the first time in 2 decades, something other than sweets has enraged her this much. She wore Prometheus on her head, Zeus was under her feet, and Napoleon was on her hand. This wasn't the Big Mom who Luffy fought. She was still moderately sane. Her mind was focused on one thing, killing the snake. Today, she was the envoy of death for anyone who would dare oppose her, not like there were many. On a lifeless island of New World. Hey, stop. I am here. Hey. At the shore of the island, a girl was screaming on top of her lungs while waving her hand towards a ship barely visible at the far sea. From the looks of it, the ship hasn't even noticed her. She was wearing a sleeveless white garment with a diamond-shaped design on both sides and an indigo, was patterned bottom half. If a professional tailor saw this, he would be able to recognize that garment was originally a sleeved kimono with long white sleeves but were later ripped off, leaving the garment sleeveless and making it more battle-fitting. Arg, why did he leave me on this island? The girl groaned and rubbed her temple. This was Yamato, Kaido's daughter. The person who, in this timeline, decided to be trained by Kaido after the changes made by Amon. He even made me eat a devil fruit. Now I can't just swim out of this island. Unlike canon, Kaido gave her the mythical Zoan devil fruit by himself. How am I supposed to find Ace at this rate? She fell on her butt and moved her head up towards the sky. There was a huge white cloud floating over her head. She imagined Odin's face on the cloud as her fist curled up. She slammed the ground, forming a crater, and gritted her teeth. No, I can't break down. She mumbled under her breath. I need the dairy back. I need to give that to Momonosuke after he returns. I wouldn't be Odin if I can't get it back. She clenched her jaws. Let's try my devil fruit. There must be a reason why Kaido gave this to me. With a grit of her teeth, she got up back on her foot. Her desperate eyes turned sharp. You shouldn't. Raki pleaded while her hands were locked on Robin's neck. I'm saying brother permitted me. He said I can fight Big Mom. You don't need to call him and let him know about this. Listen to me, Robin. Stop acting childish, will you? Robin kept frowning at her. Show me proof. A smile came onto Raki's face. Here. She took out her smart dial and fudged with some apps. Soon, Amon's voice came out of it. Sure. Just don't get yourself killed. If you do, don't expect me to revive you or something. I don't have actual godly powers yet. She has used the useful record feature of the smart dial. The reason being, she wanted to show Robin the recording, and she loved what Amon said. Robin listened to the recording while blinking. Raki grinned. So? Robin stared at her face. After a short silence, she nodded. Fine, do as you please. But like he said, don't get killed. Hiki. Raki leaned and kissed Robin on the cheeks. Thanks. Robin sighed and shook her head as Raki canceled the hug and jumped in the bed. Also, I am calling the others. You can't fight all of the Big Mom pirates at once. Robin added and took out her own smart dial. Do it. I know my limits. Raki agreed too. Just don't tell brother. I am worried that he will change his mind and ruin my opportunity. Seeing Robin nodding helplessly, Raki's lips curled up. Maybe I can become the strongest woman before he becomes the strongest man. Good. She rolled on the bed. She was excited about the battle. It would probably take another week for Big Mom to reach this island. So, she has time to prepare a little. Unlike how people might think. Unlike how people would believe, Raki wasn't being dumb. She knows this would be hard. She knows her limit. She knows where she stands, and she also knows Big Mom is an emperor of the sea for a reason. Raki even knows she might die. But is a life without any risk still considered living? Chapter 210, Glory. It's been a week. Big Mom has reached the Sule Kingdom. Her rage hadn't diminished in the past 7 days. In fact, it had only increased more after she saw the destroyed Yashu Kingdom on her way here. Big Mom's skin was itching. Her body was shaking with rage. Her pupils were trembling. She was impatient to behead the giant reptile that killed her favorite son. The whole crew was silent. They were nervous. In their whole life, they hadn't seen their mother this enraged. Some of them questioned, would she feel the same way if they were killed? Or was it only because the victim was Katakuri? They let their imagination run around that question, because nobody was brave enough to try it out or ask Linlin face to face. Big Mom has bought only the strongest of her crew. First, the 3 of the remaining sweet commanders, Smoothie, Cracker, and Snack. Then, there was Perispero, Daifuku Oven, and Bruli. They were the strongest on the ship. There were a lot more on the ship, but they weren't strong enough to make a note for. From Perispero's perspective, things were going downhill. While he was also very angry that his younger brother had been killed, he was thinking a bit politically instead. Now that Katakuri was gone, after Big Mom's death in a few decades, only he would be eligible enough to take over the BM pirates. Kind of selfish, he knew, but it was what it was. Perispero. Hearing Big Mom's call, Perispero turned to face her. Are we there yet? He checked the horizon with a pair of binoculars and said, Yes, Mama. It should take 1-2 hours, Parolin. Ho? Good. Big Mom clenched her fist and turned to face her children. We will start attacking from the shore, destroy everything and kill everyone, including civilians. Yes, Mama. Everyone agreed with her. It would be a killing spree. Or would it? Zchh. Cough. Mist, smoke, or fog, unclear of the exact word, started to engulf the area, the whole sea. The majority of the Charlotte family started to cough. Where is this mist coming from? Something was wrong. At the shore. Dup 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 dup. The sea was boiling. Bubbles of hot water were exploding up and down in the sea. Steam was being released, covering the whole area in a veil of fog. The whole area was hot. Not unbearable for strong people, but pretty suffocating for people below a certain level of power. Uff, this is itching my skin. Raki groaned. Wiper, tone it down a little. Wiper had his hands dipping under the water. He was the source of the heat, the fog, the boiling sea. Shut up and bear with it. Wiper scoffed. He was salty because he couldn't fight that Katakuri. Now, he wanted to fight Big Mom, but he knows his limit. Unlike a certain someone, he would be happy killing the other sweet commanders and help Raki focus on Big Mom. He was at least confident enough for that. He would let the others handle the mobs. Yes, all the sins are here, who were standing beside and behind Wiper, along with a few more. Yo-ho, Raki-san, you can always clean yourself in a hot bath, you know. The skeleton, Brooke, laughed. Perhaps, I can even help you take a bath, AAA. Don't move your mouth too much, or it will come off. Raki glared at him after punching him on the shoulder. Brooke has been with Yona since 2 years ago when Amon first helped him from Moria's clutch. He's been the vice warden of the new thriller bark ever since. If not for the fact that he was positioned in that role, he would have been the 7th sin. Oh, I can see them. A robotic voice said. It was Short Motor, the automata. Even in this foggy area, his robotic pupil rotated. Zooming in the front, he observed the ship that was just a few hundred meters away. So do we attack right now? Brooke broke the silence that had fallen upon the sins. No, Sumi answered. Let them come down here. Drowning them won't be as fun. Raki raised an eyebrow. I don't think they'd be drowned, to begin with. Before Tsumi could ask what Raki meant, the sea in front of them got covered by something that soon turned hard solid, thus practically freezing the sea. Charlotte Perispero. Nobody had to ask for what happened as Short Motor started to spit out information stored in his memory. Eldest child of Big Mom. He has the paramecia, lick devil fruit, using which he can create any type of candy. Likewise, he has used his powers to create a thick and solid layer above the sea surface, most likely noticing us. Good job, Motor. Raki slowly took out her swords. And yes, they indeed noticed us. Or the mist wouldn't just start vanishing. Yes, the mist had started to clear up. Soon, the figure of a huge ball of cloud with eyes, nose, and a mouth became visible in the air. Sure, Motor didn't need to explain how the cloud must have sucked in all the mist since the Sins were at least smart enough to decode that. Other than that, they weren't in a state to listen to Short Motor's explanation either, because... Where are you, little snake? A hungry predator was in the same sky, standing above the cloud, Zeus. Raki narrowed her eyes as she moved her swords in front of her in a cross shape, seemingly wanting to defend against an attack. Unsurprisingly, the predator had recognized her prey and had rushed towards her. Big Mom had Napoleon on her arm as she prepared to swing it. Raising it in the air, she charged her attack. Watch out for the Spear of Elbath! Big Mom yelled as a shockwave surrounded Napoleon. A Coca sovereignty. She swung her sword down. Pooh! An array of pink shockwave rushed towards the 6 Sins, Brook and Short Motor. But Sky Sword style, Form 0. Raki's arms buffed up, green feathers covering them in less than a second. At the same time, her golden eyes shone. They shone as bright as the sun. Dash, copy technique, a Coca sovereignty. Dash. Raki swung her swords. A smaller but similar ray of shockwave left her swords and went a clash with the power of a homie. Boom BAAM. How will this fight end? Raki wasn't so sure anymore. Chapter 211. Glory. The clash of the two Akoka sovereignty created a grand sound upon their clash. Big Mom's overwhelmingly larger wave was toppling over the wave shot by Raki. Under the great pressure, the ground under Raki cracked, creating a round crater, rendering her hands holding the swords to shake heavily, almost falling off. The other Sins behind her were caught off guard momentarily. There aren't many things one can do against a shockwave attack except evade it, take it head-on, or use a counter shockwave. The momentary shock soon subsided. While Raki had wide, bloodshot eyes defending against Big Mom, the Sins prepared to release their own Rokugan. One of the criteria to be a Sin was to be a master of all Rokushiki. The first was Wiper. He prepared to jump behind Raki and help her. But, I am fine. Stay away. Raki's body transformed in an instant. This time, unlike with Katakuri, her hair didn't turn blonde since the transformation had stopped on her neck. She didn't want to become dazed in this fight, so it was better for her transformation to not reach her eyes. Feathered Serpent. Form 1.5. A tail sprouted out of her body. The tail moved like a whip, jumping forward and also releasing a Rokugan by acting like a third hand. Boom! Raki's two-wave overwhelmed Big Mom's single wave. With a burst of wind, both shockwaves vanished. Raki's breathing was hectic. Her hands were shaking. Big Mom was looking down at her with a furious look on her face. She didn't think the little snake would be able to match her impact. A grin formed on her face. Mama, seems like killing you would be more satisfying than I thought. Napoleon, who was in her right hand, turned into a belt and wrapped around Lean's waist. Her left hand that was holding on to Prometheus, the mini-sun, moved over her head as Prometheus jumped on her hair. Her hair turned fiery, looking as if she was a true demon. From the looks of it, she would fight hand-to-hand right now. Zeus. Big Mom kicked the cloud under her feet. Move towards her. Zeus made a move and dashed towards Raki super fast. Big Mom could see Raki clenching her jaws and preparing to fight her head-on. By then, along with Wiper, everyone else had realized something. This isn't a fight Raki can win. Wiper kicked the ground to reach for Raki, but a leg appeared in front of his face that he swiftly evaded and jumped back. You're going nowhere. A tall woman with legs taller than the giant Jack stood in front of him with a stoned face. Sweet Commander Smoothie. Wiper grinned. We will see about that. He kicked the ground while a fist of fire went toward Smoothie's face. When you're against someone who can hit hard, or a person who can use Conqueror's coding, never use your giant snake form. That's what her brother had said. He also said, doing so would get her killed. She can see what he meant. Against Big Mom, if she turned into her giant snake form, she would die. Not only would she not be able to dodge any attack, but her absolute defense also wouldn't work against a blow coated with Conqueror's Haki. But is this any better? CAK. A giant fist with black lightning swirling around it hit her in the gut, causing Raki's eyes to almost pop out. Hoo! Big Mom looked at her with fury and disappointment. Is that all you got? Come on. Attack me. Stop getting hit only. Big Mom spread her arms, emphasizing her stomach and asking for an attack. She normally wouldn't do that, but she wanted to drive Raki to the edge and make her realize how helpless she was. Raki's swords were flown far from her. She was left with nothing but her fists. So this is the gap between her and an emperor? And she was so confident. Fuck. But fine. She wanted to get attacked? Raki would attack. Raki lifted her fist up, coating it with light and Ryo. She threw a punch at Big Mom's stomach since she couldn't reach her face. Her arms were bulging with muscle. They moved at a terrible speed and came into contact with Big Mom's stomach. Big Mom's so-called steel skin couldn't stop Ryo at all. Raki's fist coated with light damaged her from outside while her insides were done in by advanced armament. Big Mom coughed out saliva, while her wide eyes were locked at Raki. So the snake can also hit hard? Big Mom thought, both shocked and amused. Meanwhile, Raki's arms moved fast, very fast, blurring and looking as if they were multiplied. She kept punching Big Mom's stomach, causing Linlin's body to skid back on the ground. Raki didn't talk. She had her jaws clenched and her eyes sharp. After around 150 punches, Linlin moved her hand to smack Raki away. But as her hand came towards Raki, Raki jumped up kicking the air and moved towards her giant face. Old hag, giving me a chance to start punching was your last mistake. Raki sneered and kicked towards Big Mom's giant face, her leg covered in light and Ryo. Raki believed she was fast enough to hit her and back out. She was following the hit-and-run tactic. But abruptly, no, it was not. Big Mom moved at a speed beyond hers and grabbed Raki's leg with her giant hand. Little snake, the battle ends here. Raki was rendered unable to process anything as Big Mom slammed her on the ground. Ugh. Raki crashed to the ground face first, but that wasn't the end of it. Big Mom raised her in the air again and slammed her down on the other side. Bam. Raki groaned. Big Mom continued. Bam. 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 The slamming continued for almost a minute as Big Mom stopped. Raki was stuck to the ground, her chest facing the sky. Her eyes were empty as she stayed still. Pathetic. Big Mom raised her fist again, but before she could attack, a chuckle left Raki. If you think a few slams to the ground is enough to take me down, then you're stupid. Raki's body was shaking, but she was grinning. Big Mom grinned too. Mama, you aren't as boring as I thought. She laughed, she snickered, but her face went serious the next second. But it's time to end this. Big Mom raised her fist and coated it with not only Conqueror's Haki but also Prometheus. She pushed her fist forward, a great punch going towards Raki's head. Just before the impact point, a trail of blue flame came in between Raki and Linlin's punch. Big Mom's frown depended as her fist stopped. Ah, lucky. The trail of fire took the form of a humanoid creature. I am not the physically strongest, so thanks for using a flame attack. Prometheus' yellow form started to turn bluish as an expression of pure bliss appeared on his face. From behind Wiper, Urge came and fetched Raki and took her far from here. Upon a turn of her head, Big Mom noticed all her children were defeated, even Zeus who she sent to aid the others, but, from Raki's team, only Tsumi, Yona, Brook, and Short Motor were knocked out. Hancock, Wiper, and Urge were relatively fine. Urge took Raki away, reaching Hancock who was standing far from Big Mom. Big Mom had a momentary question. Why aren't they attacking at once? They surely don't believe this Wiper guy would be able to take her down by himself? She didn't need to wait for an answer. She looked down, and Wiper's body started shining bright all of a sudden. Yo, did you know nitroglycerin explodes when it comes into contact with fire? He grinned. Ah, it seems I accidentally drank a bottle of nitroglycerin when you were checking out the others. Oops dash. BOM. An explosion occurred. It wasn't huge as Wiper concentrated the radius, but it was more potent because of the concentration. Smoke and dust rose all around and covered the area. Hancock aided Raki to get up while they waited for the smoke to subside. The smoke subsided as the an expected sight got uncovered. A charred and ruffled-haired Big Mom came into view with an unscratched, but arm broken, Wiper in her hand. You bastard! Big Mom cried out. You killed Prometheus. Ha! Wiper chuckled. Blood trailed down his lips. Worth it. With pure anger filling her eyes, Big Mom grabbed Wiper's head, coated her palm in Conqueror's Haki, and bashed his head on the ground. The sound of a coconut cracking sounded, but Big Mom didn't stop there. She raised her feet and went to paste Wiper's head at once. But before she could do so, 3 humanoid figures appeared in front of Wiper's unconscious body. The person standing in front blocked Linlin's attack with her twin swords with a grin on her face. I am healed. Time for a second rune. Shut up. Big Mom was enraged. Her other hand rose to the air and slammed down on Raki's swords. This time, a pair of large hands blocked her fist. It was Urge who had a calm look on his face. Less than or equal to karma, full counter greater than or equal to. A similar black lightning that was covering Lin's arms appeared from Yurich's palms as he released a counterwave of Big Mom's impact. A deep wound appeared in her arm as Big Mom screamed like a little girl. Kayak. She was caught off guard. It's not every day she feels pain. So, her pain tolerance is very low. In days, she was unable to recognize the aerial attack coming toward her from above. Boa Hancock spun vertically in the air, her legs coated in armament as she was still not proficient at Conqueror's coding. Lunar Fall. The attack hit Big Mama in her head as her eyes went blank. She froze briefly, giving time to Hancock, which she used to smirk. A bad move. She should have backed off. Lin's right arm moved and grabbed Hancock by her waist while her right hand grabbed Urich. Then in a speed beyond Raki could react, Big Mom slammed their heads together, causing the sound of coconuts cracking. This was an attack Urich couldn't counter, since the countered force would only hit Hancock. Big Mom, with fiery eyes, cursed up fist, through the two bodies on the ground. She towered over Raki, who frowned deeply, preparing to defend instead of attacking. Big Mom took out Napoleon from her belt and raised it in the air. Zeus. She called as a fluffy cloud rose in the air from the silent battlefield on the side. Give me thunder. Zeus didn't make any sound. He just rose in the air, charged his electrons, and turned into a dark cloud. The sky turned black under the command of Zeus, the homie, as lightning crackled around his body. Crack. Zeus discharged a bolt of lightning down that went and hit Napoleon. A ball of lightning danced on Napoleon's tip, which soon turned purple after mixing with the black lightning released by Lin's Conqueror's haki. Die. With an angry shout, Big Mom slashed her sword downwards, towards a sweating Raki who was preparing to defend against an impossible attack. But, as expected, Big Mom's hand stopped midway. Lightning couldn't hurt people loved by God of Lightning. Old whore, you better stop. Big Mom's body froze as she sluggishly turned her head towards the voice, towards Zeus. A person wearing nothing but tattered khaki pants sat above Zeus as if it was his throne, his chin resting on his cupped fist. He had a rope made of lightning on his hand, connected with the lighting ball on Napoleon. Yo, been a while. Heard your son died? My condolences. Amon, you brat. Kek, sorry, but I am a bit busy. I would like to finish this ASAP. Big Mom opened her mouth to say something, but Amon vanished from above Zeus. He suddenly appeared above her head with his fist swung back. Old hag, ever heard of King Punch? I heard it can take down emperors. Big Mom's eyes went wide as she realized what he meant. Goodbye. Amon moved, but Lin only saw a trail of white lines. A strong blow hit her in the forehead, exactly in the middle, and threw her to the ground, on her back. Cook. Why is this bastard here? Raki gritted her teeth. She almost got her. She prepared to dodge her final attack and finish her finally. But her dream to become the strongest is now done since he is here. Robin, that bitch, she probably called him on my back. Raki sighed and sheathed her swords back. Raki instead waited for Big Mom to get up since she was sure Lin was fine. As expected, Big Mom stood up slowly with never-seen-before rage present in her eyes. You bastard! You bastard! Big Mom swung her sword on Amon, which just went through his body as if he was a hologram. Ow, it doesn't work. Amon merely sighed. Big Mom was relatively undamaged except for the fist imprint curved on her forehead in the middle of a crack. While leisurely dodging Big Mom's attacks, Amon pointed his hand towards Raki, who got confused. Ignoring her, one of Raki's swords jumped up from her sheath and went to Amon's hand. I will borrow this for a second. I forgot mine. Amon didn't wait for any approval and turned his head towards the raging Big Mom. He held the sword horizontally in the air and charged electricity. Amon, you brought. Big Mom yelled. She was starting to lose her mind, causing her defense to drop significantly. Let's try King Slash instead. Amon muttered it's a matter for him to use King Punch, since he can charge the attack that needs 1 hour in less than a second with his speed. Speed truly was a cheat. Here we go. For a final touch, Amon added Conqueror's coding as a cherry on the top. He moved his hand. The charged-up sword moved faster than the speed of lightning and went through Big Mom's raging right arm like tofu. Thud. Wow, it works. Amon whistled as he saw Big Mom's arm falling on the ground freely. Ayya! A huge shriek left Big Mom's lips as she fell on her knees. The velocity of the screech increased. It soon imitated the scene from the Whole Cake Island arc, but there were only 2 people to hear her sound. All right then. I don't like torturing elderly people. Amon shrugged with a barely amused look. Goodbye. The sword moved again, this time towards her head. Nothing was there to stop his attack. Nothing was there to block it. So, something that was clear from the beginning happened. Big Mom's severed head slowly fell on the ground while the screech perished away. One Emperor of the Sea, down. Chapter 212, Mysteries. 2 hours later. Hey, May. Raki rolled on her bed while screaming. Why did you come? She cried. I almost got her. Stop being annoying. Amon was sitting on a chair, staring at her with a deadpan look on his face. You'd have been split in half by the last attack. Huh? Raki sat up. How do you know? I already blocked her strikes before. Amon sighed. You think I came at the last moment? I was there from the time you stopped the Ikoka sovereignty, and I knew about this bullshit challenge of yours from a week ago, and before you ask, no, it was not Robin. Raki's annoyed look turned into surprise, he continued. I wanted to see how far you'd be able to go, Amon answered. You did good, but you're far from being the strongest woman alive. This caused Raki to frown. Wait, what? Why? If Big Mom is dead, I should be the strongest woman left, right? She was genuinely confused. From what she knew, she was the strongest after Big Mom. The only other name she could think of, Boa Hancock, wasn't on the same level as her. Is there anyone else above me? Amon laughed. Well, not many. Only one. She's Kaido's daughter, Yamato. From what I learned from Rio, she recently moved out of Wano in search of someone. Raki frowned. Yeah, I remember you talking about her. What makes you think she can beat me? How strong is she? Amon thought of a proper example before saying, basically, she is strong enough to beat you and fuck you with a strap on. Raki stared at him with disbelief, not digesting his words, but she soon realized her brother wouldn't lie to her. She rubbed her temple. Okay, so, why is she so strong? A special martial art? She has advanced conqueror's haki. Arg. With a groan she fell on her back. That shit again, I hate it so much. Why did everyone have it? Even Hancock has it. Does that mean one day Hancock would surpass her? Suddenly. Raki blinked and got up. She ran towards Amon and sat on his lap, wrapping her arms around his neck. Hey, big brother. Stop. Do something. I want to become the strongest woman. She looked at him with puppy eyes while Amon stared at her with dead eyes. You're not even a woman yet. In the end, he sighed. You know, you're being too bratty these days. This all could have caused me a lot problems. Imagine if the sins died. You were too overconfident. He sighed. I can give you a pass since I didn't stop you myself, even though I knew about it, but just don't do anything stupid like this before. He then started at her eyes silently. She didn't say anything, but the words did reach her. He was sure she wouldn't do something so irrational again. Well, at least not against Emperor-level enemies. Amon then shrugged. Fine, since you're so genuine I will do something. He dropped Raki from his lap, all to the girl's grief, and took out a piece of paper from his pockets. He tossed it towards Raki. Go to this address and tell them you want to learn a Hashoken. Recognizing you, they'd teach it to you. Though it depends if you can even master it in this life. Raki caught the paper and stared at it with a tilt of the head. Hapo Navy? Wait, it's those people who we allied with 5 months ago? Yeah. Amon quickly shot a look around the room. This was the medic room of the Sule Kingdom where all the sins were laying on the bed. Amon gave them teardrops of the dwarf princess from Dressrosa, so they don't need any more medical help. Anyway, I'm going out. Raki raised her head. Where? Where? Amon smirked, death flashing in his eyes. I have had the curry, time for the dessert. Her people would cause too many problems later on if I don't eat them right now. BZ's T-dash. 2 days later. What if Flash grabbed a blade and slashed everyone in sight while running at the speed of light? A bloodbath. That's what would happen. Something similar had occurred in Whole Cake Island 2 days ago. In a matter of minutes, the cheerful island where all kinds of races used to live was dyed red. The people who were confused when all the homies suddenly fell asleep didn't expect an unavoidable attack at all. Amon killed them all. From people who would die for Big Mom, to people like Pudding, who wouldn't mind backstabbing her own mother. Not even a dog was spared. Their first mistake was, they were his enemy. Their second mistake was, they didn't have any use for him. So he simply eradicated them all. But of course, some, who were his enemies, did have use. Such as them. They are the strongest of Big Mom pirates. Robin pointed forward. Smoothie, Cracker, Paraspero, Daifuku, Oven, and some people not worth mentioning, were on their knees, their hands cuffed behind their backs with sea stone. It's been a day. The news is yet to travel all over the world, so Amon was busy finishing his job here before going back to seclusion. Amon laid back on his chair, I was in need of some strong experimental subjects. Good to have you here. Hope we share a great work life together. His words went to the nerves of everyone present, but only one person was unable to control his feelings. You bastard. Free us this instant. Cracker tried to struggle, only to get zapped by lightning, causing him to fall face first with charred skin. Hiya. Just shut up. Amon shook his head, disappointed. Considering you used to serve a Yonko, I thought you'd be smarter. What makes you think I would free you after capturing you instead of going for a kill? They looked at each other's faces. Did Wiper fry your brain cells? Amon gazed down at him as he struggled to get up. As expected, a mere zap isn't going to seriously injure a Yonko commander. He's right, Cracker. This time, the calm smoothie talked. Asking for freedom is stupid, at this point. I'd rather have him kill us. Ah, so sorry. Amon apologized. Wishful thinking. They were enemies, yes, but unfortunately, they had some uses left. Unfortunately, you can't die yet. You see, currently, I need test subjects for a useful experiment. You see, the current subjects are too weak, so they always die without even passing the first stage. So I need vessels strong enough to withstand at least the first stage. You lot would do the job. Every one of them glared at Amon. Not only did he kill their mother, but now they were going to die by his hands too, and that death doesn't seem like it will be a slow one. What makes you think we compile? Brolin. Parasparrow narrowed his eyes and asked, all to Amon's amusement. Interesting question. Amon scratched his cheeks. Robin, any idea you might have? Robin, who was standing beside Amon's chair, silently nodded. I suggest we take Charlotte Smoothie as a hostage and turn her into a prostitute like that celestial dragon. It seems the customers are waiting for a new product for quite some time. She would be a great addition. She added, she will be a prostitute as long as her brothers don't compile with us. The moment they act decently and we succeed at the project oars, she will be freed. This caused Smoothie to frown and every other remaining Big Mom pirates to snap. You dash. How can you suggest something like that being a woman yourself? You demon bitch. A guy who Amon didn't know, yelled, trying to get up and attack him, only to fall face first. To their reaction, Amon smiled. That seems to be a good idea. Congratulations, Robin. You outperformed today. Though the question was, would this actually work? The news of the death of an Emperor of the Sea shook the entirety of the world. The 5 rulers of the world besides WG have been prominent since the death of Roger, but to think this day would come, every major power of the world were shocked to their course. The details of the fight were unknown. Like always, the news was as following. The 5th Emperor of the Sea, Sky Emperor, has effortlessly killed Big Mom, another Emperor of the Sea. The 5 Emperors have gone back to being Yonko. Will the government sit still at this development? In a corner of New World, a certain red-haired Shanks was sitting on a stone while staring down at the newspaper while his red hair fluttered in the air. How much time did it take for him to kill Linl? Shanks asked, but there was no one around him. At his question, the air around him stirred, almost as if responding to him. 2. Interesting. So he has already come so far. At first, when he learned that a young man had become an Emperor of the Sea, he really wanted to go and meet Amon. But, after Amon started to make moves on the world, he realized this young man wasn't someone who would sit still and talk if he went there. The death of an emperor isn't something I should ignore. Previously, he planned to go and meet Whitebeard and warn him about bringing back Ace. He had a guess that this would end up in a war with the Marines, but now that Big Mom has died, some other ideas popped up in his mind. If his guesses are correct, he needs to warn Newgate about this more seriously. Because he believed, if a war does occur, Amon would be a bigger worry than Blackbeard, or even the Marines. At first, when Amon became an emperor, causing Shanks to ask the world about him, he was confused as to why a soul who isn't a reincarnation of Joy Boy or Zebek possessed so much importance to the will of the world. To this day, even with his voice of all things, red-haired Shanks hasn't gotten an answer to that. Chapter 213, Big Mom. Shanks was only one of the many who were in shock. The entirety of the pirate faction was going through a roller coaster of emotions. First, they felt respect, fear, and anxiety. Then they started having suspicion. Did the Sky Emperor really defeat Big Mom one-on-one? Or did he attack her with his group? Soon, a minority of them started having double thoughts. Wow. Sky Emperor took down Big Mom? Bullshit. He must have used some cheap tricks. A huge, chubby woman with a pirate hat on her head laughed. As a woman, I will take down Sky Emperor first, then claim the title of strongest woman alive. Of course, this was only a minority. The majority of people believed what they were presented with. So the growth of Amon's faction was tremendous. There were also the allies of Big Mom, the ones who were truly loyal to Big Mom. Amon has killed everyone on Tato Land, but the people who were not present there at that moment got a chance of their life. Unfortunately, that bastard. How dare he kill Mama? A pink-haired young man who was wiping his tears cried out loud. Sniff? I will kill him and everyone around him. The remaining people were just inviting themselves to the death door. Meanwhile, all of this was very pressing for people like Monkey D, Dragon, and Sengoku. The death of Big Mom caused more female pirates to appear all over the world in hope of becoming the strongest woman alive. This caused pirate activity around all over the world to reach its peak, causing both Marine and Revolutionary to be busy trying their best to keep things calm. But things were barely calm. Sengoku was comparatively under more pressure than Dragon considering his situation. He released a long breath, rubbing his temple. Few strands of his hair had turned white. These few days were one of the most stressful moments of his life. Previously, he learned that his daughter is with Straw Hat Luffy. Then the news was confirmed by Warlord Gaspard, who was defeated by the Straw Hats. Next, when Hina reached the ship and was about to retrieve Alice after beating the Straw Hats, Alice refused to cooperate. She said she liked it in the ship, instead of being locked in one of the blues. She said, if her father really wanted her back, he should come and retrieve her by himself. All this was keeping Sengoku pressed on, barely holding his shit in. But now something relatively bigger just happened. Munch, munch, munch. This munching sound was the last straw in his sanity. Arg. Sengoku pulled his hair, yelling on top of his lungs. He glared at the man sitting on a bench in front of him. Stop eating. The man, Garp, almost choked on his rice crackers as he started to smack his chest. Cough. He coughed. What do you want now? What do you mean? What do you want now? Sengoku slammed the table. The world is changing. In a bad way. Garp tilted his head. Isn't an emperor's death good, though? Now we got one less problem to worry about. All the Marines are celebrating. I don't see what you're so pressed about. Sengoku facepalmed. How are you a vice admiral with that brain? Death of an emperor seemed good from the outside, but the cons that bring are more than the pros. Sengoku explained after a deep breath. To begin with, the emperors only rule the New World. Even if an emperor dies, that said emperor's territories would be devoured by other emperors. So nothing much changes. In fact, with multiple emperors present, they wouldn't be able to become the new pirate king since they'd hinder each other's growth. Seeing Garp's, Sengoku almost cried. He then explained, more so, death of an emperor would cause other pirates to start doing more crimes in hope for getting the leftover position. Thus, the crime rates would go up, causing more problems for us. Garp nodded. I get it now, and went back to eating. Sengoku stared at him deadpanly. Why did it take you so long to understand such a simple thing? This caused Garp to go serious. Well, I wasn't thinking the aftermath of Big Mom's death. I was instead thinking about that brat Amon. He clutched on his rice crackers. What he did unnerves me. No matter how bad Big Mom was, we need to appreciate how great she was as a ruler. Many innocent people had their lives dependent on her, but that kid killed them all. There is a code of honor between high-class pirates. They rob innocents, they hurt them, but they never kill them without any proper reason. Amon killed them all, there was no need for it. Garp growled. Sengoku stared at his old friend's face. A series of thoughts ran over his head as he curled his fist. Garp, don't do anything rash, he said. That kid is as strong as Newgate in his prime, if not stronger. This caused Garp to crackle up. What are you on, Sengoku? Stronger than Newgate? You mean that kid is on par with Roger? Garp scoffed. Roger one of his own kind. A pure monster. Don't compare some random kid with him. This kid's trump card is speed. Considering Roger's that defense technique, this kid wouldn't even be able to scratch him. Besides, Garp grinned. He was the one who defeated Zebek with me. Sengoku stared at his friend, remembering that fight on God Valley. Maybe it truly is a stretch to compare Amon with Roger. It was then when a knock fell on the door. Sengoku looked at the door. Come in. Upon his order, a silver-haired female walked in. Fuyu? What brings you here? He asked, waiting for an answer as the young girl politely nodded. Fuyu is a girl Sengoku saved from a destroyed island. Pirates had killed everyone on that island. Only Fuyu survived by hiding in the well. Ever since, she hated pirates and has been in search of the particular pirates who killed her family. Using her strong devil fruit, or aura, no mi, she's achieved the rank of Vice Admiral quite easily. She first glanced at Garp before straightening her gaze. Fleet Admiral. We have an update on the report from a few days ago where our spies in Wano have notified us about Yamato, King of the Beast, Kaido's son, who left for the outside world. A frown appeared on Sengoku's face. He already had a bad feeling about it. Report says she has attacked the main ship of Whitebeard pirates. Thud. Sengoku's face fell on the desk. This time, he didn't get up. Bloody hell. Chapter 214. Yamato. Ha, ha, ha. Her blood, mixed with sweat, was coming out of her body endlessly. She was half dead. This was unbelievable. How can a person be so strong? Though thinking again, he wasn't just any person, he was the strongest man alive. Is Kaido as strong as him? Yamato asked herself, laying on her back. Maybe he was. He was called the strongest creature, after all. He should be at the same level as Whitebeard, right? I can't accept it. That man is a monster. If Kaido is as strong as him, then all of this is hopeless. Recently, she had attacked the ship of the Whitebeard pirates in search of Port Asti, Ace. Her father had let her know about Ace's current position on Whitebeard pirates before he dropped her in the outside world. From there, after she learned to fly using her devil fruit, she managed to find the ship of Whitebeard pirated after a few weeks of searching. Being hot-headed, she jumped for a fight outright. But the battle was finished even before she got a chance to use her advanced Conqueror's Haki to its fullest. Edward Newgate, his name was, the strongest opponent she ever faced. She was able to injure him, but it only took 3 direct hits from his tremor-coated blows to take her down. So that's the strongest paramecia. She lost so miserably, a sigh escaped her lips. After a moment of thought, she ignored her loss for now. There was something more important. Surprisingly, when she explained she's after Ace, that Ace had stolen her diary, they had let her go. They just dropped her at a nearby island, all bloody and injured. Her broken bones were healing as of now, and she believed she'd be good to go soon. She recalled something Whitebeard had said, if you want to find him, go and look for Blackbeard. I am sure, by being around him, you'd come across Ace. She was truly confused why Whitebeard would help her find Ace. More so, when he recognized her identity after she used Thunder Bagura on him. She couldn't understand why he didn't care that the son of another emperor was after his own. Truthfully, Whitebeard really didn't care. He saw the thing that Ace, according to the girl, stole, seemed to be very important to her. While as a pirate he can't say stealing is bad, as it would make him a hypocrite, the least he can do is give the victim a chance to retrieve the item back. So that's what he did. Yamato got up from the ground with a trembling body. Crack. Some of her bones cracked, but she didn't seem to react at all. Pain was her friend at this point after training with Kaido for 2 years. She crouched down and picked up her spiky club. Blackbeard, right? Wait for me, I am coming dash. She stopped midway. Though who's Blackbeard? Yes. Yamato, the girl who's been locked in Onigashima for years, had no idea about the outside world. It's been a month since then. Yamato kept looking for information on Blackbeard, also known as Marshal D. Teach. While the man in question was currently in a life-and-death fight. Gah. A punch coated in armament Haki thrust into his stomach, causing him to almost puke. With a pain groan, Blackbeard slid back. He removed his enemy's other fist from his darkness-coated palm and jumped back. Huh. You're stronger than I expected, Commander Ace. He growled while rubbing his huge stomach with his hands. His attacker, Ace, didn't answer. He just stood there with a serious look on his face. Oh, you're not talking? Ha ha. Am I so low that you can't even spare some of your words? Teach crackled up. Or are you just that angry? Shut it, Teach. Ace interrupted. I'm not here to chit-chat. We can talk all day after I break your limbs and bring you back to Pops. He will ask you the questions you need to answer. Blackbeard huffed at him. He intercepted wrong. Ace was stronger than him even with the Yami Yami no Mi. Unlike him, Ace didn't rely on his devil fruit that much, and in fact, had great Haki. That's why he was losing this fight. He's been canceling his fruit with his own, but he is just too strong even without his fruit. Yes, Teach had his crew around, too. But without Haki, fighting a Logia user is just asking for death, more so when the Logia user is a strong one like Ace. More so, most of his crew didn't know Haki at all. In fact, if only his sniper had known armament, not just observation, Ace would have been taken out by now. This fight. Blackbeard was losing. Well, everyone. Attack. At least they had some weapons made of sea stone that he stole before leaving the Whitebeard pirates. Men hidden on the corners of the island revealed themselves and rushed towards Ace, who narrowed his eyes. Zehahahaha. Luckily, I didn't get any sea stone bullets, or you'd have been dead by now, ACE. With a cry, along with his crew, Blackbeard rushed towards Ace. He grabbed Ace's shoulder, thus rendering his Logia body to stop working, and slashed his stomach after taking out the blade from his belt. Cling. But Ace's skin turned ink black, creating the sound of metal clashing while the blade's head went dull. Fortunately, that wasn't the only attack. The other 3 members of his crew attacked Ace at once. Ace tried dodging, jumping back, but Blackbeard's gravitational pull didn't allow him to move. The attacks came hitting Ace, though he just covered his whole body in armament. None of the attacks did any significant damage. Just then, the sound of a banging sniper rifle entered their ears. The last member of Blackbeard pirates, the sniper Van Auger, had fired a bullet. Bang! Ace's Logia body wasn't working, so this was a sure hit, and hit it did. Clink. But just like before, the bullet just clashed with his skin and bounced off with a dented head. Armament at Ace's level can't be damaged by any normal sniper bullet, even if the person shooting is Sniper King. As long as the said person doesn't imbue his own haki into the bullet, there is no way for the bullet to actually damage Ace, though it did create a momentary daze. Ace's head vibrated slightly, his eyes going blurry. Blackbeard, noticing it, went to attack him again with his crew. The large man named Jesus grabbed Ace and suplexed him, while Blackbeard and the others punched and kicked him. This didn't look like a proper fight. It was as if a bunch of kids were fighting an adult. Blackbeard was desperate for survival. Unfortunately, Voem, a burst of Conqueror's haki clouded the whole place, causing Teach to trip and almost fall unconscious, but he managed to hold on. He might have the strength of a small fry, but based on will only, he was someone on the same level, if not above, Ace. But while Blackbeard survived, the people around him were knocked unconscious, mostly civilians, as his crew was still standing, even if on their knees. Sweat dripped down from Blackbeard's head as he revealed a stiff smile. Haha. Commander Ace keeps shattering my expectations. Now, it seems I am really about to dash. Before he could finish his words, Ace moved. He got up from the ground where he was suplexed and dashed towards Blackbeard. His armament-covered fist caught fire because of the friction of the air, and the heat only increased after he infused steam into it. With a burning light of rage flashing by his eyes, Ace cried, "Fire fist." Port Asti. Ace first went closer to Teach's face while Teach stared at it with a shocked expression. But just before the moment of contact, someone came interrupting them. A club, a spiky club, came in between them, going towards Ace's face instead. A female with long white hair came into view, wielding a club that had black lightning dancing around it. It clashed with Ace's fist, causing the wind to stir around that pace. Thunder Bagura. Apparently, the world hates Port Asti, Ace. Chapter 215. Ace. The research of Judge and Karna was going smoothly. They found traces of ancient giants Or's race, DNA in Moria's dead body that was turned into a zombie by Yona. They were confused, since making a proper half-human half-ancient giant was impossible artificially. How was it possible that they existed naturally? Mother Nature was more efficient than science, it seemed. To learn more about this, they passed this information to Robin, who researched on this topic and found Moria to be part of a race called Oni, and after more research, she learned that the Oni race is a distant descendant of the ancient giants. So there are barely any traces of AG blood left in the so-called Onis. Things were much clearer to Vince Moke Judge as to why Caesar was able to partially succeed in making giant children in numbers. Because Caesar himself is an Oni, considering the horn in his head. They also had a suspicion that Kaido, Yamato, Magellan are also Oni, though they had no proof for it. As mentioned before, Amon had stopped reading One Piece manga at a certain point after his father's death. While he did know about some future plot points from the internet, most were ambiguous to him. So he had no previous idea about the Oni race, nor about the Linearians, though he did know about the latter now. Anyway, now the point was, they got another lead in making Amon into a proper half-ancient giant. Moria and Caesar, whose blood was tasted, revealed that they barely have the DNA of ancient giants, so they still had a normal lifespan and no special strength. Yet, even then, this will help a lot. If only they got the blood of a strong Oni, like the supposed Oni, Kaido, then it'd have been of a lot of help. Blackbeard stood with a baffled look on his face. His crew and Ace were on the ground, lying unconscious. What the hell did he just witness? Who was that woman? Conqueror's coding. It was not as strong as Prime Whitebeard or Roger, but it was still Conqueror's coding. That's Yonko-level shit. How can a girl who looked merely in her 20s use it so efficiently? That's Roger level. No, Zebek level talent. After a long silence, Blackbeard's shocked expression soon changed, a grin appearing on his face. Ziahaha. The new era is looking great. He laughed aloud at the sky, his voice echoing the whole island of Bonero. He then looked down on the people laying down, his gaze eyeing Ace. All right, time to hand you to the Marines. Luckily, that advanced Conqueror's hockey-using girl was flown away by a mysterious source of lightning, which could only be of the Sky Emperors, from what Teach could tell. Or from the looks of it, the girl wouldn't have let him take Ace away. Though he wondered what the Sky Emperor was doing here. Blackbeard took out a pair of sea-stone handcuffs, while from far away, a girl kept watching him with binoculars. The short brown-haired girl hummed. So this is the end of Ace, huh? Or I wonder if Boss has other plans for him. The girl, Perry, who notified Amon about the arrival of the Thunderbagura user, laughed to herself. If not for her notification, Amon might not have been able to save for getting beaten to death. Oh, you're up. Amon stared down at the girl on the ground, slowly opening her eyes, while he was sitting on the branch of a tree beside her. You. She moaned while rubbing her eyes. Sitting up and opening her eyes finally, she looked around. Who talked just now? Look up, girl. I am above. At his words, she suddenly raised her head and met his eyes. First, she blinked, before narrowing her eyes, then her eyes widened. You. She glared at him. You knocked me unconscious. Wait, I know you. Oh. Amon raised an eyebrow. Did she recognize me from Wano? You're Sky Emperor, aren't you? Kaido talked about you. Amon's eyebrow went down. Hey. Yes, I am. Good to meet you. He smiled, jumping down from the tree, landing and crouching down in front of her. She stared at him. I am getting mad. I was supposed to interrogate that guy named Ace. Why did you abduct me here? Amon laughed at this. Well, miss, you can't cause trouble in my territory. What? She frowned. That other guy was fighting Ace, at first. Why didn't you intervene then? Why only when I came in? She seemed truly annoyed and furious. She recently heard this guy, who seemed to be the same age as her, had killed Big Mom. But she wasn't scared. Though she still didn't want to fight him, so she was being as respectful as possible, but he was indeed being annoying. Amon shrugged. You're different from them. Fighting between pirates is a normal thing. I am no world government who would stop those fights. But you, ma'am, are Kaido's child. I can't let you wreak havoc in my territory. I have a reputation to watch out for. Bullshit. He just wanted to take her away from Ace, so that Teach could bring Ace to the Marines, and the War of the Best could happen. Yamato frowned. He was on point. As much as she hated her father, she at least knew him well enough to guarantee that he would have done the same if, let's say, Raki went a mess around in one of the islands owned by Kaido. It's just a law among emperors. They would see anything done by another Yonko as poking their ass. Yamato's frown lessened. She sighed. I promise to not cause any trouble in your territory. Just drop me to an island that's not your territory along with Ace. Amon smiled awkwardly. I can admire your calm mind while talking to an emperor, but I have to disappoint you. You're too late. Blackbeard has already handed Ace to the Marines. Yamato moved. She grabbed her club from beside her and swung it towards Amon, though the club just went past his body as if he was just a hologram. Oh, ho, not so calm anymore. Though you should stop. You don't want to die, do you? He sighed, shook his head, and got up. Why do you need Ace anyway? He asked. I might be able to help you if you tell me that. Yamato gritted her teeth and slammed her weapon to the ground. This guy was a dodging expert, the type she hated the most. And why would you help a Yonko's child? That contradicts what you just said. Oh well, Kaido's friendship? Big Mom is dead, from what I know. Kaido must be really mad considering his relationship with her. Amon added. Even if I can't get his friendship, I can at least remove him from my back by helping his daughter. Yamato laughed with a tinge of sadness in her voice. Unfortunately, helping me wouldn't improve your relationship with him, at all. Oh, sad. He sighed. Never mind then. Wait, she interrupted him. Though it would surely improve your relationship with me. I am going to kill Kaido soon. After that, the whole Wano would be indebted to you if you can help me. Amon raised an eyebrow. Now I am interested. I heard you're super fast? Even if Ace was taken to the Marines, could you, if possible, go and fetch a diary from him? It might not be with him at this moment. Maybe he even lost it. But the least you can do is learn what happened to it, can you? Interesting. What does the diary look like? It looks normal. The only way to recognize it is its name. It's called the... She hesitated for a bit before signing. Odin's journal. At her request, Amon slipped his hands in his pockets and took out a green diary with a tilt of his head. You mean this? Yamato's eyes went wide. That's it. She got up and tried to snatch the diary away, to which Amon simply let her do it. She flipped the pages, her eyes shining, seeing it as intact as it was from the time she lost it. Ace took good care of it. She turned her face to him. Where did you get this from? Amon smiled. Well, Ace had it in his pockets that dropped when you knocked him out finally. You didn't notice since I knocked you out cold just then. I was interested in it, so I picked it up. She nodded and went back to checking the diary out. A relieved sigh escaped her lips, seeing everything present there. Now she can give this to Momo without any worry. She again looked at him, this time seriously. Thank you. I really mean it. Amon waved it away. Skip the formalities. Besides, it was a good read. Yamato's eyes went wide. Did he read the journal? Ignoring her reaction, Amon kept talking. Anyway, I am pretty busy, so I gotta go. Amon prepared to leave, but he blinked as if he suddenly remembered something. Oh, now that you got it back, you should return to Wano. As your benefactor, I would request you to stop trailing Ace and also stay out of the next world-shaking event that is going to take place soon. Because, frankly, he smiled, I don't want to kill you. As Yamato froze, he waved his hand and vanished with a zap of lightning. Yamato blinked. This guy. He had a different aura to him. He was strong, maybe not as strong as Whitebeard, but still strong. But his strength wasn't what made him special. It was the way he talked. He was a nice person. Yamato scratched her head. Well, I wanted to hunt down the Marine base Ace would be taken to, but I guess I can listen to his request. Though. She sighed and looked at the horizon of the sea. Her journey lasted around a month. She's always wanted to come out of Onigashima, and now that she has finally come out. I'm not going to return to that shitty place anytime soon. Maybe she should experience the life of normal people for a few days. Traveling, eating different kinds of food, meeting different kinds of people. Maybe she should visit Skypia first. Speaking of Skypia. Hey, Luffy, are you sure about this? A certain crew was heading right there. That's the base of an emperor. It would be dangerous. Chapter 216. Straw Hats. Smiling at them, Amon stood up from the dining table. All right, I need to go now. He glanced at the people, Raki, Isa, Bob, Karna, and Odama, who waved at him from their chairs. They just had dinner together after almost 2 months. He glanced at Raki, who seemed fine for a person who fought Big Mom just a week ago. Not only her, the other Sins were also fine after Amon fed them teardrops of the dwarf princess. He just had to threaten Daffy a little to get his hands on it. While he was busy thinking, Raki stretched her arms and yawned. You. You're not done yet in Alabasta? Nope, it would take a while more. Raki whistled. Damn, to think you're actually working hard and not just fucking around. Shut it. Isa and the others laughed at this, while Raki stuck out her tongue. BFF. Deadpanning. Amon was just about to teleport just as he sensed something. Skypia is only 10 kilometers above Jaya, so Amon can see everything happening there in real time. And currently, he was doing just that. He frowned, which got noticed by everyone in the room. Some people were coming to Skypia via the newly made road in Jaya. There are 3 routes to Skypia. The summit of the High West, the Knock-Up Stream, and the recently added Milky Road connected to Jaya. Amon created this Milky Road because of 2 reasons. First, he would rather have the entrance to his base under his observation hockey's range than to leave it be in the West Blue. Second, this allows a much easier method of traveling. That's Honey Queen's presence. I haven't checked her report for a while. Even Amon can't see with his observation hockey. The best he can do is something similar to Fujitora. Though, he did have his thunder eyes that let him see everything clearly. He closed his eyes as a bolt of lightning left his forehead, penetrating the land of Shandora and entering Jaya in less than a second. Whoa. Odama was fascinated seeing it while others waited for what Amon had to say. Opening his eyes almost immediately, Amon turned to Raki with a small smirk on his face. You know the Straw Hat Pirates? No. Amon sighed. Go and do some research on them right now. They'd come here soon. You make sure they don't die. Raki was confused as to why she would even care about some measly pirate, but by that time she could have asked him for an explanation. Amon had vanished from Shandora and Skypia as a whole. Yikes. She exhaled. I wanted to train. A few hours later. Straw Hats finally passed Heaven's Gate with their ship as a huge lobster brought them to Angel Island. In this timeline, to just enter Skypia, one would need a fortune. This was, in the end, the base of an Emperor of the Sea, after all. Yet, the Straw Hats were able to do so. Unlike Canon, they actually had more than enough money to enter Heaven's Gate, because this time, they got to fight and loot a lot of Marines coming after them because of Alice, and a bunch of newbie pirates who started their journey after Big Mom's death. More so, the initial price has been halved so that more people can come up here, because a special event is being held right now on the west side of Angel Island. This event is based on 13 daughters of Big Mom, who survived from Amon's massacre, but still came to him for revenge, regardless. Those Straw Hats were unaware of the fact. Moving on. Wow, this place is pretty fancy. Nami looked around the city as she walked by with Alice and Honey Queen. Fancy is an understatement. The blonde, Alice, exclaimed. This place is heavenly. Almost as good as Mariewa. She wore a blue dress with her blonde hair tied by a black ribbon. Some balloons were in her hands that she was grabbing tightly to not let them fly away. Image here. TF54 Hawk VLH7XBPFMNNQPF bar UI7YPAFKJ7FQP Beam Vox RM _2G468WN01DFK083BGM7Fs code 2G09 dash equals S0. She nudged closer to Nami, who shook her head slowly as the girl said, Nami, I want to eat those cotton candy thingies. Buy me some. Nami sighed hearing this. Normally she'd disagree. Those things looked expensive. But this girl was too adorable, so she had to reluctantly nod her head. Amongst all this, Honey Queen followed them with a disinterested look on her face. She is more interested in seeing any kind of drama that might happen soon. After all, she notified Amon, but he never responded. What would he do when Straw Hat starts doing something stupid in his base? More so, when they've divided each other like this. The Straw Hats are divided into 3 groups. The first is Nami, Alice, and Honey. The second is Usopp and Sanji. The third is Zoro and Luffy. She was really looking forward to it. If her luck is better, she might have to stop playing around them after this. No, playing around would be an understatement. This is clear babysitting. Without her, the Straw Hats would have been dead 10 times by now. She shrugged and followed Nami while eyeing the cotton candy. This is her second time in Skypia, so she was maybe a little interested in the things here, just a little. Oi, cat burglar, buy me some too. Nami smiled at her and nodded. Nami really respected her, from what Honey Queen could tell. Maybe the little girl felt that women who can stand on their own are cool. Hey, this feels good sometimes. Well, Straw Hats are somewhere and problems wouldn't occur. Is that possible? Not in this timeline. You bastards. How dare you treat women like this? Sanji kicked the guard who was flown a few meters behind. Sanji, stop it. This is not a place we should be fighting in. Remember what Honey said before coming here? No matter what we do, we mustn't start a fight. How can I stay calm in such a situation? Sanji announced. They're treating women as sex dolls. Sanji and Usopp were wandering around Angel Island's west side. Usopp was interested in the dials they were using, while Sanji was interested in the literal angels walking around him. His gaze that examined all the women's rear and bosom was easily noticed by the people from the red light district. Taking Sanji as a potential customer, they approached him and explained to him about the new goods. Big Mom's daughters, starting from the ugliest to the most beautiful one. They were all available for a play as long as he had money. This pissed Sanji off. He already knew about prostitution, and he hated it. He didn't like the fact that women sold their bodies for some mere bellies, though he still had to bear with it since the girls working there do this willingly. But this? It was clear that Big Mom's daughters were being forced. First and foremost, they shouldn't be punished for Big Mom's mistake. And secondly, even if they were to be punished, this was not the way. But Sanji, by doing this you're endangering all of our lives. Sanji clenched his fist at Usopp's words. On second thought, it was indeed reckless. Maybe he shouldn't have done that. Alas, it was too late. The guard who he kicked got up with a pained expression. My, we got a troublesome one. He took out the walkie-talkie-like device hanging from his waist and clicked the connect button, then saying, We need reinforcements. Usopp sighed at this. We are done for. On the other hand, Raki, who was watching T.V, got a sudden call on her smart dial. Miss, since you've asked us to notify you if anything happens with the Straw Hats, we believe you should come here ASAP. Raki deadpanned at this and sighed, getting up slowly after cutting the call. This is pissing me off. He said not to kill. I can at least break their legs, right? Amon didn't actually mind, and in fact already knew something like this would happen. The reason he put the no-kill rule on her was because of this. Cut them, break them, just don't kill them. He didn't want to babysit the Straw Hats, but he didn't mind fueling them with a bit of oil since he did have a free chance lying around. And it would be a spectacle to see when Sanji meets Raki. Unfortunately, Amon might miss it. Meanwhile, in Marineford, Sengoku stared ahead at the silver-haired girl with a dazed look on his face. Fuyu, are you sure? He asked for one last time. I am certain, Fleet Admiral. Vice Admiral Hina couldn't follow them anymore since they entered Sky Emperor's base. Sengoku heaved a sigh and leaned back on his chair. I am done for. If that kid, Amon, discovered the relationship between him and Alice, it would be a disaster. Though luckily for poor Sengoku, the current Amon was strong enough to not care about small-time manipulation like this anymore. After all, what's the meaning of power if he still had to manipulate people to gain things? Just a gaze should be enough. Chapter 217, Luffy. Diable Jam. Sanji rolled on his spot continuously, a flame soon encircling his right leg. This is a technique Sanji learned in Enies Lobby arc, which, if evaluated by canon means, should happen in a month from now on. This showed Sanji's growth in this timeline, but does that truly matter? Sanji kicked the ground with his other leg and flew towards the 10 guards who were rushing towards him. They were just normal guards patrolling Angel Island. So of course they weren't as strong as the guards in Shandora. Sanji's kick fell on the face of the first guard rushing towards him, who fell back with a shriek. The other guards tried to attack Sanji, but this time, as surprising as it may sound, Usopp fired a stone at him. Awk. The guard also fell back, seeing which, Usopp smiling nervously. Sanji. I got your back. Sanji grinned. Thanks, Usopp. Kicking the ground again, he rushed towards the 7 remaining guards who surrounded him and tried to attack him from all sides while some others rushed towards Usopp, stopping him from assisting Sanji any further. Sanji easily deflected the spear that was sent surging to his face with his leg and jumped back. They're good, these guards. Sanji shook his head. It wasn't a time he could get distracted. It was his mistake to start a fight here. He should quickly finish them and make a run. He can't possibly make his crew suffer because of him. Just then, Oi, Sanji. The familiar squeaky voice of his captain entered his ears. He turned to his left with a grin, seeing Luffy and Zoro dashing toward him, preparing to fight. I don't know what happened, but let's go. Yoo-hoo. People started to gather around and observe them from far. Among them Honey Queen, Nami, and Alice were gathered. This is bad. Honey Queen muttered under her breath. Honey, you should jump in right now. Alice mumbled in her ears, causing her to almost spit on her face. Hell no. Joining them would prove that she's one of them. While the current enemies are just ants for her, even if a vice leader of any battalions of come, she'd be fucker. And she didn't even want to think about the sins. Just then, her eyes went terribly wide as she suddenly felt a strong presence rushing towards the street. Her legs lost strength as a black-haired girl appeared in the sky with flapping white wings. Amongst everyone who could have come. She cursed under her breath. It's this bitch. Oi, troublemakers. Everyone on the street looked up at the sky. The Skypians cheered while Straw Hats frowned. From the side, Nami, seeing Honey's worried expression, deduced this as one of the worst situations they had ever been in. Sanji looked up. The girl wearing a casual round-collared white t-shirt and short pants entered his vision. He almost lost the heat of his diable jam since heat rushed to another part of his body. Whoa, guys look dash. Focus, you Aerocook. She's an enemy. At Zoro's interruption, Sanji nodded with a groan. Though it was hard for him to look away from her creamy thighs and high boots, he had to stay alert. All the guards had been defeated by Luffy and Zoro. Other guards had already reached the spot, but from what Sanji could see, they didn't approach them since they deemed it useless because of this girl. He knows this girl. After Honey Queen revealed Amon's bounty to them, the crew had asked her about the others too. She went briefly on the Sins posters. From there Sanji saw this girl. He recalled her name was Raki. She's beautiful, but she's an enemy. I need to prepare to dodge her attacks. He stilled his spirit. Let's wait for any male reinforcements. While Luffy was staring at Raki, Zoro noticed Sanji's conflicting face and scoffed. Don't worry about her. From the looks of it, he had the twin sword in her waist. She's a swordswoman. I will take on her. No. Suddenly, Luffy talked. She's strong. Stay back, both of you. Well. Breaking their chattering, Raki flew down to the ground with her hands in her pockets. Who wants to die first? Amongst the crowd, a pair of eyes stared at the fight, cracking her knuckles. This would be fun. Looking in front of her, at the skinny guy wearing a straw hat, Raki raised an eyebrow. He's strong for a guy with such a skinny build. Her wisdom eyes had already seen through their power levels. Zoro and Sanji were on a pretty similar level while Luffy was a step ahead of them. Still weak, though. She shrugged and wondered why her brother was so interested in them. Though, of course, she respected his decisions fully. She'd not kill them, not at all. Maybe break a limb or two. It's not like broken limbs don't heal, either. There was a reason as to why Raki was so pissed. Today was the day when she's supposed to leave for the Happo Navy and start learning a Hasshokunai there. But for some nobodies, her brother told her to stay back and ensure they don't die. She shrugged. It's his fault that he didn't specify what to do with them. Though contrary to her belief, Amon knew this would happen. He believed the Straw Hats' bullshit luck that forces them to face a tough situation to help them grow would occur here again. That's the only reason he asked Raki to make sure they don't die. Breaking a limb or two is fine in his book. As much as he hated it, he needed Luffy to become strong somehow. He was that paranoid. She then walked towards him, Luffy, who stood in front of Zoro and Sanji. You're their captain? Yeah. Wanna die? Raki stared at him. This is my brother's territory. Small fries like you shouldn't be causing problems here. We have a reputation to look out for. Now die. Casually saying such a thing, Raki kicked the ground, vanishing from Luffy's sharp eyes. Luffy was surprised at such speed. All the enemies he met until now were more or less close to his level. This speed reminded him of Kuro, but she was faster. He couldn't compare how much faster she was since both of them were invisible to his eye, but he could guess this girl was a few steps beyond Kuro. Luffy instinctively crossed his arms in front of him as he felt Raki's fist rushing towards his face. Bam! A great shockwave left the impact point, causing the surrounding people to fall back. Zoro and Sanji were shocked at the strength that left the girl's fist. If her punch was this strong, why was she carrying two swords? Did that mean this wasn't even her full power? Pretty weak. Commenting on this, while Luffy tried his best to harden his arm's muscles to stop hurting, Raki launched her fist back. We should finish this. Shocking Luffy, Raki's forearm turned black with a red hue on it. A half-transparent aura-like thing appeared around her fist as she swung her punch forward, dodging Luffy's try to block and hitting him in the stomach. Luffy felt the punch not only hitting his outside, but his insides too. He felt his stomach failing him as he almost puked the meat he ate a few hours ago. The assault didn't stop there, unfortunately. Her other fist connected with his jaws, causing his body to rise in the air. She twisted her waist and kicked his face, causing one of his teeth to jump out of his mouth. Arg! Luffy was being handled like a toddler, all happening very fast for normal eyes. Though the people who could see this were shell-shocked. Zoro, Sanji, and Honey Queen realized that they fucked up. Thud. All while Monkey D. Luffy just fell on his back with his mouth open, teeth missing, and blank eyes. This wasn't even a fight. Woohoo! Let's go, Lady Raki. Ignoring the public's cheering, Raki then turned to Zoro and Sanji. While she started to approach Sanji, Zoro suddenly jumped in front of him. Sanji looked a little shocked, but he didn't complain. Think you're forgetting someone? He said with two swords in his hands and one in his mouth. I need to make sure my captain didn't lose in vain. Ignoring his speech, Raki raised an eyebrow at Zoro. Nice style. Let's see how well you can handle it. Raki took out her swords, moving towards Zoro, who clenched his jaws holding his third sword. There are two types of sword styles, light style and strong style. Light style is mostly used while fighting another sword user or fighting a small target, while strong style is made to cut mountains, ocean, and even the sun itself. It's basically made for destruction. Raki has two styles, the Sky Sword style and Twin Sword style. Sky Sword is strong style while Twin Sword style is light style. She is not the best at both, but she is better than most people who use a sword. Currently, Sky Sword style, Wine Cutter. Raki was going for a mountain-breaking skill, contrary to her previous thoughts. She was quite interested in seeing what three swords can do. Purple Haki jumped up from her swords as they went to clash with Zoro, almost creating a tornado because of the sheer pressure released by the technique. Seeing Zoro's eyes going wide in front of the pressure, Raki almost stopped her attack since she didn't want to kill him, but before she could do so, cling! A thorny club with a trail of black lighting appeared in front of her, clashing with her swords. Raki's eyes went slightly wider, feeling the club almost overthrowing her. She jumped back with her swords and frowned. Yo, another annoying one? She had the kimono-wearing female wielding the club with a dissatisfied look on her face. Hi. The other party smiled, shielding Zoro. Don't you think that much power is a bit too much for a newbie like him? Both Zoro and Raki frowned. I was about to stop anyway. Raki glared at her. Who are you? Oh, I am Yamato. Mind sparring a bit? For some reason, Raki hated this girl. More so, that was advanced conqueror's haki, right? Sparring, huh? Chapter 218, Big 3. Mind sparring a bit? Zoro frowned at the white-haired girl's words. He didn't like someone intervening in his battle, not at all. More so, the girl with snow-white hair even called him a newbie. But he gritted his teeth and endured the words of both women. He had to hold on for his captain. Luffy was so strong, but that girl defeated him so easily. Without the white-haired girls intervene, the same would have happened to him and Sanji as well. This made him recall that girl, Kuina, his first friend. She always thought girls were weak, he recalled. But what was this? These two girls were pure monsters. Zoro sighed. Either way dash. Hick. Suddenly, hearing a sobbing hick, he looked behind him, his jaws almost agape. Two beautiful women. Fighting for me? Zoro almost went unconscious seeing Sanji's teary eyes and touched face. How can a person be so delusional? Though this served Zoro to loosen his muscles a bit. While the black-haired girl was strong, the white-haired one seemed to be a step ahead. If she was truly taking their side, this meant they now had a chance to escape. You want to spar? Bitch, do you even know where you're standing right now? Raki stared at the girl, the annoyance clear in her eyes. She could see her power level, but that only served to annoy her even more. Oh, I am just curious. I have heard about you before, you see. The girl, who called herself Yamato, stated. Completely fine with being called a bitch. From the look in your eyes, you seem to be wanting to fight me, too? At this, Raki's annoyance changed to a smirk. Just because you have Conqueror's coding, you think you're some big shot? Yamato shrugged. Raki snickered. Okay, fine, let's do it your way then. Again, Purple Haki jumped out of her swords, while a half-transparent aura encircled it. Let me show I will one-shot you. Yamato curled her lips upwards and coated her own weapon, the spiky club, with Conqueror's haki. An aura of black lightning surrounded it. They both jumped back into a distance, then kicking the ground, they rushed towards each other causing wind to rise and killing intent to cover the whole area. Being under such pressure, some of the spectators almost fell on their knees and backed off, giving the two monsters some space. Both girls had a grin on their faces as both their weapons were about to clash with each other. But just then, purple lightning crackled between them. BZTCH. Before they could clash with each other, from the sky, an Elthor of purple lightning slammed to the ground with a huge rumble in the sky, barely avoiding Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy. Boom. From the sky, the figure of an annoyed Amon appeared with a dissatisfied look on his face. Looks like his plan was too laid back since he didn't consider the other possibilities. From far, atop of a tower, a small automata, Short Motor heaved a relieved sigh. Phew, he came at the right time. Luckily, I managed to send the electrical signal just in time, just like last time with Big Mom. If not for him, wouldn't all the spectators have died? As much as he loved his queen, it was still stupid for Raki to start fighting such a strong person whose strength was confirmed by her wisdom eyes. Later, Luffy abruptly opened his eyes and jumped up on his feet. Where are you, woman? He yelled, to which he heard a groan from behind. Looking back, he found Zoro standing up with the help of his sword. Zoro, where did that girl go? Luffy cried. We are in a different place than before, too. Zoro stood up, rubbing his head. Huh. His eyes wandered around the place he was in. It was a huge white hall. It seemed to be like a training hall. Pretty dope, he thought. Stopping his gaze at a corner of the room, he talked. You're right, Luffy. Though there seems to be someone who knows that answer. His eyes locked on the tan-skinned man sitting on the chair at the left corner of the hall while polishing the spear in his hands. Luffy turned to the corner and also noticed him, a smile forming on his face. Oi, you. Mind helping us a bit? The guy, noticing the call, got up and walked closer. "Oh, you guys are up?" He smiled. "I am Wiper. You see, the annoying guy who I work for asked me to beat you too hard, while making sure you don't die." His smile turned sadistic. "So, when do you want to start?" After the initial surprise, Luffy and Zoro exchanged glances as they prepared their fighting stance. At the same time, Sanji's eyelids twitched as he slowly opened them. Putting a hand on his forehead and rubbing it, he groaned. He had a headache. The last thing he recalled was seeing a purple beam of lighting hitting the two girls in front of him. The beam didn't reach him nor Zoro, so he was confused at what exactly knocked them out. It was as if my spirit was being crushed by something. Suddenly, "Ah, Sanji, you're up." Sanji frowned. Whose voice was that? He turned to his left as his eyes went wide. Wearing a white shirt with a pink ribbon on the collar, she had plump pink lips along with pink hair that had a bang covering one of her eyes. In the single eye that was visible, the brows that he started at looked just like his own. The girl smiled at him and picked up a bowl of soup from the table behind her. "Reiju." His voice was filled with disbelief. The girl smiled. "So you do recognize me? I guess the hate you have for us is that strong." Sanji's body trembled. One of the main reasons he got angry when he learned that Big Mom's daughters were being used as prostitutes was her, Reiju, his older sister. Since Big Mom's daughters were being used like that, what guaranteed that Reiju wasn't going through the same fate? After all, she was also Amon's enemy. The sheer possibility of that angered him to his core. But now, "HM? You look shocked." She seemed fine. She walked closer to him and sat down in the bed he was laying on. "I was surprised when I learned you became a pirate, but I assume you finally found something to put your passion in other than cooking. Though I am again surprised to find you here, in Skypia." Sanji stared. Her tone was normal. No, it was sweeter than he recalled from the past. Has she changed over time? Has she regained some of her emotions by being in this place? On a side note, she was holding a bowl of soup. Is she going to feed him? The next second, she put the bowl down on the small table beside the bed. "Ah. Well, I would have liked to feed you, but you see, Amon would probably hate me feeding another man, even if it's you. He's obsessive like that, hee." Sanji clenched his fist, feeling something strange. His sister was fine, even joking with him. Did that mean everything he was scared of before was just a fantasy of his? Did that mean she was enjoying a satisfying life here? Sanji was in a dilemma, though he would never know that a brainwashed person is always satisfied. In another room, Nami, the cat burglar's eyes twitched similar to Sanji as they parted open, letting light invade her eyes. Opening her eyes, she realized the light was different than usual. It had a golden shine to it. How can light be golden? Isn't it already present in that color? She wondered. The first thing she realized after that was that she had gone unconscious by a strange power, most likely a devil fruit. And now she was here, in this room. Looking around, she found that the room only has one bed where she was laid. So, were the Straw Hats separated by one room? Or did something else happen? She didn't want to think of the worst and got up, walking to the window in the room. Walking by the window, Nami's eyes widened under the blinding golden shine as she felt losing strength on her legs. Whoa. In front of her was a city, a golden city. Houses and skyscrapers, coffee shops and restaurants, street lights and cars. Everywhere her eyes went was gold. Everything was made of gold. Except for the trees and the black street. Everywhere her eyes went, everything she could see was made of gold. So this is the famous city of gold? She thought that was just a myth, but she was seeing it with her own two eyes. Nami felt her heartbeat rising, her hand shaking while her eyes shined with extreme greed. Careful now, suddenly a hand fell on her shoulder. The guy ruling this place is an omniscient god. I am sure you wouldn't want him to sense your thoughts. Nami froze as a trail of nervous sweat dripped down from her head. She turned to her left slowly, meeting eyes with Honey Queen. Ah. Nami released a breath she didn't know she was holding. You almost scared me to death, honey. Honey Queen laughed it off. Yeah, I guess. Though I was not lying. That guy is omniscient, at least I believe he is. Nami had a tense look on her face at this. She trusted Honey Queen's words a lot. If a strong woman like Honey was saying something with such conviction, that must be true. Honey laughed at this. Don't worry too much. I am sure he hears those types of thoughts every day. After all, who wouldn't feel greed seeing such a beautiful spectacle? Nami nodded slowly, while Honey asked herself. Who wouldn't? Honey Queen looked outside the window with a distant gaze. There was a time when she would have felt greed at this, too. But now, mortal desires like greed was barely inside her. She guessed that's what happens when a person gets directly trained by Amon. He clearly wouldn't want greedy people under him. Or maybe she was different because she is an undercover agent. On second thought, the latter seemed more plausible. Anyway, Honey Queen giggled. It looks like most of us are up. We should leave quickly before the Sky Emperor changes his mind. Nami looked at her. He is allowing us to leave even though we caused problems in his territory? Honey Queen smiled nervously. Well, she sighed. We are certainly lucky, but we did have to pay something for it. Both Zoro and Luffy's left legs were broken as a punishment, but I am sure you can tell this can't even be considered a punishment. After a slight shock that came from the fact that the strongest of her crew lost, most likely without even giving a proper fight, Nami thinned her lips and nodded. At least now Sanji would think twice before doing something like this later on. Meanwhile, above Giant Jack, Amon was sitting on a chair with his legs crossed while looking down in front of him. In front of him, Raki and Yamato were on their knees with their hands tied behind them with sea stone shackles. Why am I tied? It's her fault. She started the fight. Raki complained, frowning. I just wanted to fight. I was curious. Yamato mumbled, looking at Amon with a shameful face. She did what she said she wouldn't, causing problems in his territory, more so in his base. Amon shook his head and started calculating how he can make this situation useful to him. Straw Hats got the fight he wanted them to have, even if the one fighting them has changed, so this wasn't that big of a problem. More so, he can always use Yamato. He has many uses for a strong female such as her. Last time, he didn't have many options in his hand other than asking her to stay out of the war. But after she dared to do what she said she wouldn't, a lot more options have been opened in front of him. Chapter 219. Happiness. Meanwhile, Zoro and Luffy were in the Going Merry, sitting on the deck with bandages wrapped around their whole body and plaster on both their left legs. Luffy looked at Zoro funny. Zoro, these people are really strong. And weird. Yeah, that too. Luffy nodded. They first beat us up, then they helped us bandage ourselves. He frowned. Though that doesn't mean I wouldn't kick their asses the next time we meet. Luffy growled while Zoro made a sharp frown. He also agreed. Then, Zoro yawned and fell on his back. Do whatever you want. I just want to fight that girl. I'm gonna sleep. Bye. I will wait for the others. Saying so, Luffy got up and walked to the kitchen to fetch some food. Luffy would have usually been in a serious mood after getting beaten like this, but these guys didn't endanger his crew and were only minding their business, more so since they even let his friends go without doing anything. He didn't mind a reality check beating. This beating was enough for him to realize how strong people were in this world. He didn't understand how dangerous it is, yet, but hopefully Marineford would teach him that, though that's considering he even gets to reach Marineford this time around. Soon he started to empty the fridge just when Sanji came and pulled him out. Giant Jack. So, what now? Raki mumbled while looking at Amon with nervous eyes. What if he doesn't let her go to Hapo Navy anymore? Then she won't be able to learn a Hashoken. Amon had a judging frown on his face while he stared at both her and the white-haired bitch beside her. Raki, Amon pointed at her. I will deal with you later. I would like to first talk to Miss Yamato. This caused Raki to groan. Now this bitch was stealing her spotlight too. Meanwhile, Yamato simply smiled wryly. Say, how about you join me? My kingdom or crew, whatever you want to call it. Amon's words caught Yamato off guard while Raki gave him a narrowed-eyes look, which he ignored. You want me to join you? Yamato was kind of confused. You know, you only gave me back the diary to make up with Kaido, but if you now make one of Kaido's strongest troops, aka me, join you, then that previous action would be worthless. Not only would he come after me for betraying him, he'd also come after you as well. Amon smirked at this. Good point. But at the very least, I'd have a strong commander, aka you, in my army by then. You said you'd kill Kaido, right? I can help you with that, which would be easier if he does come after me. I am sure you realize just how many ways the elimination of another emperor would benefit me. Yamato frowned at this. As much as she wanted to kill Kaido, she didn't like talking about it like this with another emperor. Yamato shook her head at this. The main reason why I wanted to leave Onigashima was to travel the world, but joining you would cause me to stay in Skypia forever. Even if I do get to go out for missions, I wouldn't be able to call them my adventure. Amon gave her a mild smile. If that's indeed the case, you can leave when the 9 red scabbards appear in Wano. Yamato's eyes widened at this. How did he? If you have forgotten already, I did read the diary, and along with the information I get from my spy in Wano, it's not hard to connect the dots. Yamato's mouth was agape. You have a spy in Wano. In fact, she's a higher officer of Kaido's army. Seeing his smile, a calculating look appeared on Yamato's face. Wait, she? Is it Black Maria? Or Altai? Wait, oops dash, Amon bit his lips. Did I say she? Ahem, I meant, he dot. A large frown appeared on her face. He was just playing with her, this guy. Now she couldn't even guess who it was. Even in her wildest dream, she couldn't know that it's Rio the Eruption, the second strongest and beast pirates after Kaido. So, decide quickly. I am a bit busy, you see. Or would you like some time? I can leave Raki to look after you. Oi. Raki refused at once while Yamato started to think. There were a few things to consider here. First, she would be under him, an emperor who made a good first impression on her. Second, if she refused, she isn't sure what had happened to her since even if the man did leave a good first impression, he was still one of the most ruthless pirates in the world. Okay. She took a breath and nodded. I don't mind, as long as I am not asked to do something too outrageous. Like what? Sex? Raki suddenly asked. You think he'd not demand that? While Amon deadpanned, Yamato tilted her head. What sex? No. What is it? Raki started laughing and fell on her back while Amon shrugged. He didn't have time for this shit. Yamato was grown like a barbarian, so it wasn't impossible to accept her state. He sighed. Okay, stop, you two. He sighed while both the girls stopped. Then Miss Yamato, I can't make you a sin since you're a temporary member, so I just make you work directly under me. You don't have any specific job, just follow whatever is being thrown at you for now. Amon wanted Yamato and his crew for two reasons. One, she'd be of great help in Marineford. 2, she is a must for Judge's experiment. That day when he took Yamato away from Ace, he took a sample of her blood when she was unconscious. After testing it, it indeed matched with the Oars and Moria's DNA, so that was enough proof that she is an Oni, thus making Kaido one as well. In this case, having a real living and walking Oni would help the experiment a lot. Amon stood up. For now, if you don't mind, I'd like a bit of help with a research of mine. Amon looked at her leisurely. Raki lead her to the lab. Nearly half a month, the repair of Pluton was done. It was a good time. Vivi hugged him one last time before kissing him in the cheeks. We finally got to spend some alone time together after our marriage. Can I consider this as our honeymoon? Amon nodded. If you want. Vivi's happiness was apparent in her smile as she giggled and stepped back. Now then, I guess it's time for you to leave. She waved her hand. We will see each other again. When? Amon smiled. A month? Yeah. Kind of that time. Blackbeard has just been crowned a Shichibukai, thus filling the 7 warlords' seats again. Along with Marshal D. Teach, the other warlords were Mihawk, Doflamingo, Jinbe, Kuma, Gaspard, and Mad Treasure. Vivi then waved her hand again as Amon teleported away, his last thought being, it's finally the time to go through the surgery. Chapter 220, Yamato. While Raki was out in the Happo Navy trying to learn Hashoken, and while Ace was in Impel Down and the 5 elders were deciding what to do with him, Amon was in Judge's lab located on a branch of Giant Jack. He was sitting in a chair with a bunch of bounty posters in his hand. Big Mom was a threat, a big one at that. Killing her was bound to cause the people involved bounties to spike up. That's exactly what happened with his crew. Amon wasn't present to witness it because of his time in Alabasta, but now that he was back in Skypia, he was getting up to date with his crew's new bounty. The Sin of Wrath, Raki. Bounty, 1.9 billion. The Sin of Pride, Wiper. Bounty, 1.4 billion. The Sin of Gluttony, Urich. Bounty, 990 million. The Sin of Lust, Boa Hancock. Bounty, 950 million. The Sin of Sloth, Yona. Bounty, 900 million. The Sin of Greed, Sumi. Bounty, 800 million. Motor Gang Leader, Short Motor. Bounty, 600 million. Soul King, Brook. Bounty, 400 million. All the Sin's previous titles like Heavenly Princess were changed and dumped since many of the pirates around the world were confused about their identity at one point or another, so the Marines had to do this. Now they were simply referred to as the Sins, just like the other Emperor's Commander's titles. At last, Amon moved his gaze at the last poster, his poster, which previously had the bounty of 4.2 billion, but now, Emperor of the Sky, Amon. Bounty, for 1,610 million. Exactly 1 million lesser than Kaido, eh? Kind of funny. Amon snickered. What was this? Were they trying to prove that Kaido was still above him, even after he killed Big Mom? Funny. From Hina, he learned the reason as to why his bounty only increased 400 million after killing and fucking Emperor of the Sea. In the case of a normal person, this would have thrown their bounties directly on the 2 billion, or even 3 billion categories, but this was not a normal person. The unwritten rule is, the more bounty a person has, the less it'd increase over time, so that there stays a balance between things. If not, Whitebeard would have long surpassed Roger since it's been 20 years following his death. Other than that, there was a personal reason initiated by the Celestials. Apparently, giving Amon a bounty above Kaido would cause him to grow more arrogant, thus causing him to do his piracy job to extreme lengths. Yes, before they were fighting to increase his bounty in the hope that some emperor would be pissed and attack him, but after this recent incident, they were against it. They feared. If the other emperors attacked Amon, and if somehow they lost and got killed, there would be no one between Amon and the world government. Then who would save them from him? After a talk with Imu, 5 elders knew that they didn't possess enough power to hold Amon off, well, other than the great Imusama, who unfortunately was locked under the barrier fruits barrier. Amon, who wasn't 100% aware of this, chuckled softly. Oh, well, the War of the Best is there for a reason. That's my biggest opportunity until now, in my 22 years of life. After countless emotions and glee of opportunity flashed by his eyes, a sigh left his lips as just then a huge figure walked in. My lord. It was Vince Moke Judge. He's ready. Oh. Amon nodded his head and put the posters down, getting up from the chair. He then walked to Judge. Lead the way then. For a power play, he walked a few steps in front of Judge, who directed him towards a cell hidden under the chamber. Reaching the chamber, Judge walked forward and opened the door with a key. Amon peeked inside with an inquisitive look on his face. Inside, a black-haired man was chained against the wall with a frown on his face. It's you, yeah. It was one of the supernovas, Trafalgar D. Waterlaw. Is it finally time for you to tell me why I am here? He asked while eyeing Judge, as his gaze then drifted to Amon. Or would he tell me? Oh, hi. I believe you know me already? Amon gave him a short smirk. Hope my men treated you well these days. Law chucked at this. Treating me well? Bet they did. Yeah. But with my crew as a hostage, it doesn't really matter, does it now? Y'all are just trying to use me, for reasons I am still not aware of. Amon crouched down, chuckling. Oh, you don't need to be aware of it, to be clear. You are a doctor, but you're only at your level for your fruit. If not for the fact that a new person with op fruit would need to learn things from the get-go, you'd have been killed by now. I do have better doctors on me, after all. Law clicked his tongue. Another one after my fruit. Amon shrugged at this. If you don't have the power to protect something so precious, then avoiding situations like this is impossible. Though giving you this type of advice is meaningless now. It's been a week since Law was found by Amon's network. Marines usually get the news of a pirate's location very late, and when the news does reach them, another problem arises. By the time a Marine reaches the island that a pirate is supposed to be, the said pirate usually already leaves for the next island. So catching a pirate based on news is almost improbable. However, that is not a problem with Amon, not at all. With his incredible speed, capturing Law was a piece of cake after wingless Valkyries notified him of Law's current position. Unfortunately, Amon doesn't have his eyes in other blues, so it was hard to find Law a few years ago unless he sent a few troops after him specially. Which he didn't, since there was no immediate need for Law, and instead waited for him to reach the Grand Line. So what's going to happen to me now, Dash? Law was forced to shut his mouth as Amon grabbed his jaw with his hand. Shh, quiet now. I don't enjoy conversation with dead people. Law's eyes widened. Dead? His fear came true. He didn't know what to do as Amon grabbed his skull with his hand just as extreme pain invaded his brain. He felt his nervous system overloading and some of his nerves bursting forward. He desperately tried to activate his fruit in the hope to reverse operate his brain, but unfortunately, he was chained with sea stone shackles. Grggh. Law struggled. Foam started to leak from the corner of his lips as his heart started to pump faster. At last, when reality sank in him, just as he realized that something worse than death was happening to him, he tried to kill himself. He tried to bite his tongue. But just then, his brain shut off and rebooted itself. All this happened in less than a second. Law's body slouched down as he started ahead with blank eyes. Amon drew his hand back from his head and hissed. Not really a fan of brainwashing anymore. Maybe I'm growing soft. Behind him, Judge stood with an indifferent look on his face. He didn't seem affected at all. Anyway, Amon stood up while wiping his hand with a handkerchief and threw it away. Bring him to the main chamber. I am really excited about all this. Judge nodded. Yamato sat on the floor while eating a burger slowly. Her eyes drifted all around the high-tech medic room with barely any interest present in them. You guys really have the most developed technology, huh? She talked in between eating as Karna nodded. But of course, technology is our main department of work. He laughed softly. There was once a time when we didn't even have TV, from what I heard from Mom. Whoa, really? What's a TV, though? Yamato gulped the last bite of the burger. Karna looked at her with narrowed eyes and shrugged. Woman, why are you here in the first place? I want to see Amon's transformation. Karna frowned while Yamato wiped her lips. Did he permit you? He said it's fine. Yamato's eyelids drooped, showing her sleepy state. I just want to watch him become an Oni. We're quite rare after all. Yamato was asking constant questions when she was being experimented on, which Amon allowed Karna and Judge to answer to keep her complying. Bleh. Karna scoffed and turned to the monitor, where a smiley face was displaying. This was clearly Seraph, the supercomputer AI who was connected to all the computers in Shandora, along with this lab. He clenched his small fist. He wouldn't have been able to succeed in decoding Yamato's DNA and make it implantable in others if not for the AI. He was still an incompetent being. Vegapunk was many times greater than him. That's enough. Just then, Amon, who talked, walked inside with Judge and Law. Amon walked to Karna and patted his head. You did fine. Don't forget you're but a child who hasn't even turned 10. I am sure you'd be able to do great things once you reach your 20s. Karna gave Amon a surprised look that soon turned into a smile as he hugged Amon's legs. I believe in you. Well, you should. Amon shrugged. He made Isa eat medicines when Karna was in her wombs. They weren't harmful, not at all. Instead, they were similar to the medications that helped the development of a baby from Earth. Just that. The ones made by Amon lacked a bit of testing since he was far from a doctor back then. So Karna by no means was normal. He can be considered a genetically enhanced human too, but the enhancement only happened in his brain. So it might not be very far-fetched to say that he has the capability of becoming one of the best scientists in the world. The experiment this time got a lot of help from Karna, but it was mostly Judge. First, using Lineage Factor manipulating texts, they tried to implement Or's DNA directly onto humans, who died instantly as the DNA started to merge with theirs because instead of merging, Or's DNA started to devour their own. Next, they researched Caesar's experiment on the kids. After that, to make the humans' DNA adaptive, they started to feed them special medications made by none other than Kureha, the best doctor in the world. The result was slow this time, but after trying to change their DNA according to Or's, they indeed started to change, albeit slowly, day by day. However, just like the drawback in Caesar experiment, since the subjects were adults, they all died before the transformation could have been completed 100%. After that, luckily Judge got his hands on some failed Onis, the numbers from Kaido's army. They had Or's-like strength, but they lost their mind in the process. That wouldn't have done, so Judge demanded strong people who would be able to bear the stress of the experiment without breaking. That's where the Charlotte children came. Using them, Judge was able to make more promising progress. Things weren't that good at first, but they didn't just die after a single experiment and the effect still stayed. So the progress was calculable and things were going smoothly. That was until they learned that Or's race is called Oni based on the poneglyph and some ancient texts that Robin found. They figured out using Moria's zombified body, by Yona, that he was an Oni too, and Kaido was most likely one too. This made sense with the previous rivalry of Kaido and Moria as well. The great change began when they got their hands on Yamato, a true, alive, Oni. And when they got Yamato to freely experiment on, the progress of the experiment skyrocketed, and in a matter of weeks, they were able to make an elixir, the Great Demon Blood. After drinking this elixir, the test subject's DNA was so flexible that it was almost possible for them to eat another devil fruit. Almost. And now, Amon was there, with that same elixir in front of him. Here, my lord. Judge respectfully handed Amon the elixir that he accepted with a calm face. Taking a deep breath, he opened the cap of the bottle and devoured the contents in one go. At that moment, he almost fell on his knees as his leg bones felt like noodles, but Judge grabbed him and helped him stay standing. Careful, as I explained in the way since the elixir made your lineage flexible, they are now quite timid. So you'd not be able to exert your strength much. Judge explained as Amon nodded. Heh, It's been a while since I felt this weak. He simply chuckled while his body shook like an old man. Anyway, guide me to the incubator. Judge nodded while he helped Amon walk to the glass incubator in the middle of the room. The glass of the incubator is very durable, but if a strong person really wanted it, they'd be able to break, thus killing Amon easily. It was honestly a little worrying since there wasn't anyone there other than Yamato, who he knew can be trusted based on her surface thoughts and emotions. That's why Law was here. If anything happened, he can just teleport away with Amon, and in the worst-case scenario, if the experiment starts to fail, he can use his Nomi to reverse operate on Amon any moment and save his life. Law was a lifeline. As Amon stepped inside the incubator, and as many metallic tentacles surrounded him, stripping him naked while raising him in the air, dozens of metallic pipes made a hole in his spinal cord and connected with his whole body. Operation starting. Please be prepared for hell. Master. With Seraph's voice vanishing slowly into thin air, Amon felt a suck in his soul. Chapter 221. Karma. Ha 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 ha. Raki couldn't help but laugh out loud as she saw ripples leaving her hands. Her armament-covered fist hit Don Chinjo on his head, on his flat skull, creating ripples in the space upon contact. Don Chinjo, the greatest master of Hashoken, couldn't help but feel proud of his disciple. Ha! Chinjo gasped, feeling the great strength clashing with his head. To think such talent existed. This little girl came to him around 2 months ago to learn Hashoken. He didn't want to, but he had to teach her his family technique as it was one of the conditions of the Hapo Navies and Einherjar's alliance. So when he started teaching her things, she got it on the first try. How crazy was that? She did say she knew similar techniques that used shockwave as a base, a thing called the Rokugan or something, but it was nonetheless an impressive feat. And if it wasn't impressive enough, she reached an outstanding, no, an unbelievable level of mastery in less than 2 months. No, it wasn't as good as his prime self, but it was at the same level as his current self. That alone speaks a lot. Chinjo didn't know, but this wasn't talent. It was cheating. If talented people like Luffy were to be here, he'd have learned it in maybe a week. Luffy did learn Ryu in that time frame in canon, after all. However, Raki didn't use her latest, she simply cheated her way to the top. Raki wouldn't have normally been able to reach this far so early, if not for the fact that she was already at a good level with Rokugan and had her wisdom eyes, which let her imitate techniques to a degree. Since her teacher was old Qianzhou, she imitated his current technique. If she was lucky enough to get teaching from Prime Qianzhou, she could have reached this prime self. Just as Chinjo finished his internal monologue, he felt Raki's fist hitting his head again. This time he felt a sharp pain in his head, almost as if something that had been slumbering for a long time arose. Huh. Raki stopped punching and exclaimed, "Hey, old man, your head is weird, it's pointy all of a sudden." Chinjo forgot about the spar and ran to find a mirror, and to his shock, no, to his amazement, he found a lost treasure, that is his head. Things in the Hapo Navy's HQ got weird, so Raki quickly took leave after confirming that Chinjo wouldn't be able to teach her anything better anymore. Now, this was a journey of her own. She laughed softly and raised her palm to her face. Upon concentrating the strength in her body, not her haki, ripples came out of her palms and vibrations hit her face. This was so awesome, but not as awesome as Conqueror's coding. Ugh. She groaned and shook her head. That might be true now, but if she could learn how to mix wind style with this, she'd be clearly able to match Conqueror's coding. This excited her a lot, so she couldn't stop the giggle from leaving her lips. Hee, I wonder if brother knows Hashoken. If he doesn't, I can flex at him. As she giggled again, the Heaven's Gate entered her sight from a distance. She was in her hybrid form, except for her head, so 6 wings had sprouted up in her back as she flapped them and went flying towards the giant jack. The first thing she did was looking for Amon, but she soon remembered that he had gone to do the surgery from his chat with Robin using her smart dial. So she instead made a detour to the branch of Giant Jack where Vince Moke Judge's laboratory is located. Hey, where are you, bro? She ran inside just as she stilled abruptly, coming face to face with a huge incubator at the size of at least 3 normal humans. Whoa, who is inside that? She asked, looking at the human figure floating inside that with his eyes closed. Wait, is that brother? Her eyes widened just as she heard Inshu coming from behind her. She turned to find Yamato standing there, eating an apple. Don't cause a fuss. He almost died twice. The incubator he was inside at first had burst out because of the sudden increase in his body size. If not for this guy, she pointed at a corner where Law was sitting, the incubator would have broken and your brother would have died. Using Room, Law was able to teleport Amon to a new incubator that was prepared in an emergency. Raki's eyes widened. She at first wanted to slap the bitch for interrupting her, but the words that left the Oni's mouth concerned her. It's fine though. Munch, she pointed at the large monitor on the wall. That thing is a progress bar or something, that kid said. It looks almost full. Raki turned her head at the monitor where the completion bar was 99%. This caused her to heave a sigh. Where is Judge? She turned to the girl and asked. He's not. Oh, wait, he's here. Just as Yamato finished her words, Vinsmoke Judge walked inside the room and greeted Raki. Hello, young miss. Welcome back. Cut the crap. Tell me, is brother going to be okay? Judge nodded. Of course. I can see your concern, as I have heard about his previous surgeries, but not to worry, he's completely fine now. This medicine has been tested on others a lot of times before. It shouldn't have any drawbacks. Huh. Suddenly the small figure of Karna walked in. That statement isn't really accurate. He's already experiencing a change in size. That didn't happen in others. If I have done even a tiny bit of contribution in this research, it was the changes I made in Oni blood that was supposed to make sure that the surgery wouldn't change the appearance of the test subject. But it's already looking bad, so we can't be sure. The 99% progress doesn't mean anything good, as the real problems occur just at this percent most of the time. At this, Judge went silent. He sighed. I guess it can't be helped. We did do tests on others, but since the Oni blood used here is a mixture of Yamato, Moria, Ors, and even Big Mom's blood, the problem arose. Big Mom wasn't supposed to be included, but after Milord asked, and after the mixture came out a success, I didn't think adding that blood would be a bad thing, sadly. The only strong test subjects who we had on us that could survive the surgery are Big Mom's own children who already share her lineage, aka DNA, so testing it on them didn't show any effect, obviously. Raki frowned and turned to Amon's large body inside the incubator. Was that really necessary? There were strong people in the God's army too, or maybe not. From what she learned, other than exceptionally physically strong people of Big Mom's army, like Oven, and even Charlotte Smoothie who was brought to experiment on two at some point, everyone else died. And as far as she was aware, there weren't many physically strong people in Amon's army. Most were strong because of their technique, not their strong genes. There was only Urge and herself. Amon probably didn't want to use Urge since losing a sin as strong as him might have caused him a lot, and Raki was just out of question. If not for a total emergency, he'd never test on her again. She knew that. It seems he didn't deem this as an emergency for whatever reason. Perhaps he was confident at controlling any backlash that might come at his body? And left Raki's lips. Sai kickin'. Before she could smile, she froze again. If Sai kickin' was his master plan, it has already failed since it couldn't stop his body from getting larger. Then is he out of all his cards? It's fine, big sis. Karna muttered. There isn't much to worry about with that law guy over there. Even if the operation fails, Brother Amon wouldn't die, for sure. He may go to coma, but we can work around that somehow. Crack. Suddenly the incubator cracked. What's happening, Judge? Raki yelled as the computer showing the progress bar suddenly went red and an emergency bell started to ring heavily. The test subject is getting overwhelmed. The test subject is getting overwhelmed. The test subject is getting overwhelmed. Ugh. A loud and deep cry came from within the incubator. It was a painful cry. The great pain the man inside the incubator was feeling was clear from this cry alone. The whole room went red from the alarm break, causing panic amongst the people below to spark up. Raki started to look around as millions of ideas started to pop up in her head. What should she do? See, calm down, everyone. I will do something. What are you going to do? Call that guy over there. Karna retorted Judge and pointed at Law. That's a good idea. Yamato ran to Law and brought him back. You do something. Yes. Law nodded at Judge's words as he tried to open a room, but just then, just before he could do so, lightning sparked on his forehead as he slopped down on the floor. What's happening? The red beeping sound caused Karna to almost lose it as he cried out, but just then, Raki held her breath. Wait. I think I know what happened. She recalled her conversation with Amon once about the greatest devil fruits in the world. The op was one of them, so she knew what uses it had. That was a lightning spark. I recall inside a room, nobody can experience pain, nor can they be hurt, and only the op's user can do surgery, nobody else can. From the lightning spark, We can assume that brother did it consciously so that Law doesn't open a room and ruin the operation, meaning the pain he's experiencing and everything that is happening right now is for his own good. I think. Everyone stopped talking as they took her words into their minds. They slowly calmed their breathing and looked at the incubator with worried eyes. You think he's going to be okay? Yamato asked, looking at Raki, whose golden eyes were shining at the incubator. A small smile appeared on the latter girl's face. Yeah, he's strong. Crack. The incubator burst out before she could finish her line. Pieces of glass jumped towards all of them as Judge covered himself with the veil on his back, as Yamato transformed to her hybrid form and crouched down, and as Raki grabbed Karna and protected him with her back, also in her hybrid form. A green gas soon enveloped the whole hall. Asterisk. Just after the gas mostly subsided, Raki stood up, but she didn't have to look for Amon, as the huge figure of a 30-feet man came into her view immediately. She started at the figure with Karna in her arms with wide eyes. He was naked, but because of the bit of fog that was still present, his face and the thing between his legs was hidden. She could see his large hips big enough to crush a mountain, his wide arms large enough to grab the clouds, and his chest that was wide enough to cover the entire night sky. There was no general change in his skin tone. He didn't become yellow-skinned or anything, so Raki guessed that was fine. Of course, she didn't mind any changes as long as he was still. Amon in the mind. So she jumped up and flew towards his face with her wings, leaving Karna behind. Getting close to his face that had a stern and stone-like look, she froze briefly. There were 2 red horns in his head, just like Yamato. His eyes were sharp, very so, his jaw was heavy and his nose was high. He had his old shoulder-length hair too, but it was wet because of the liquid inside the incubator. His facial appearance also looked the same as before, except for the horns and the bit of dead look within his eyes. Brother. He didn't answer at first, but he did open his mouth after a few seconds. You are. His voice was deep, but that didn't matter. What mattered was his question. You are. What the hell was this bastard saying? Was he trying to make fun out of her? Be brother. It's me, Raki. Raki? He tilted his huge head. Raki who? I am sorry. I don't think I know you. Are you sure you're not mistaking me for someone else? Also, where is this place? Raki's eyes widened as her lips quivered. This bastard. Why did he choose to add Big Mom's blood? That bitch was crazy. Did that make him go crazy too? She clenched her jaws for the last time. Are you? Amon. Amon who? His deep voice finally caused something to break within her. Amon didn't have a deep voice. He would also never forget her. This guy wasn't Amon. He couldn't be Amon. Amon wouldn't lose his mind after a mere surgery. She didn't believe so. In anger, she curled her fist and punched him in the face. But unlike how she expected her punch to hit his large face, he simply vanished. There was no BZT. There was nothing. He just vanished. She moved her eyes around, but she couldn't find anyone. Just as she was about to look behind her, she felt a hand on her shoulder. My, is that how you treat patients? She abruptly looked back towards the source of the voice, just where a human-sized Amon was standing while wearing a white shirt and black pants. His hair was short, not reaching his shoulders anymore, and he had an everlasting grin on his face. That same grin caused something to snap in Raki's head. Also, you shouldn't punch your own brother. I was just kidding, dash. Die. A beam of light left her mouth, blinding the whole hall. Amongst the light, only the sound of a man laughing and a girl yelling die could be heard. Chapter 222, Warlords. Bioelectricity Manipulation. By manipulating the electricity present in my body, I manipulated my body's adaptability system like how my Kikin does to properly absorb the Oni blood. That's why I was still alive. And that's why I would probably be the only subject to ever come out of this exact elixir. That's why I shot Law unconscious, since his room would have caused things to turn bad. I succeeded. Bioelectricity manipulation isn't something I had before. I gained this mid-surgery. My Gorogoro no Mi has finally awakened. I was able to surpass the urge to laugh out loud, but I wasn't able to suppress the soft grin from forming on my face. If my guess about my new powers is correct, then it's not too far-fetched to say I am a real god. Though, I looked at the girl in my arms as my grin turned to a smile. They looked in front of them where Raki had her head buried on Amon's chest while the latter had a rare genuine smile on his face. They assumed the smile came from Raki, and they weren't entirely wrong. The two siblings didn't say anything and stayed like that. As Yamato finally broke the ice of silence, are you feeling okay? You're still Amon, right? She asked slowly, worry present in her voice. Amon looked at her and smiled. He liked good girls like her. Easy to money, he stopped thinking anything like that for now and shook his head. This wasn't time for that. She then looked at his human-sized body hugged by Raki, and also, what's up with your body? It was huge just a minute ago. Amon blinked at her question. I am Amon, not to worry about that. And about my body, well, basically, I can control the size of my body at will. It is one of the powers of my fruit. Like this dash. Under Raki's hug, Amon's body slowly became small and took the form of a 12-year-old child. Raki raised her face to look at him for a second before hugging him again. This time, Amon's face was buried on her chest. Instead, peeking from her shoulder, Amon then continued, previously, my skin turned bluish-white, but now, well, it seems my fruit awakened, so I can control the color of my lightning at will. That's how I am maintaining this natural human skin color. Nobody in the room cared about the awakening of his fruit, since nobody understood just how much it changed things. Oh, okay. If you're feeling good then. Yamato nodded. Nice horns, by the way. Amon smiled cheekily at this. He could feel 2 small horns on his head, indeed, and they were quite sensitive right now. He then eyed the woman. No, the little girl hugging him. Raki. At the child Amon's call, the little girl simply hugged him tighter. I guess it's my fault. I shouldn't have joked like that. But, can you free me? I want to test my new powers, Mum. He couldn't finish his words as his childlike head was simply pushed inside 2 soft marshmallows. Raki apparently liked Shota Amon, so he had to quickly put her to sleep before she could get any weird ideas. Next, he was inside his personal training hall with a huge house-sized dumbbell in his right hand. He raised it to the air and lowered it, and continued the motion. It was easy, very easy. Amon was strong, very much so, but he was also aware that he was nowhere close to so casually lift this dumbbell, at least not before. It meant one thing, this worked. The Oni blood, the second elixir, was made to strengthen Amon's body like an Oni, like Oars and Kaido. It not only worked, but because of some other unforeseen situation, his true form was now a small giant. The important part of all this was, he could feel the enhanced defense that Big Mom once had. It wasn't at her level, of course, but he could feel that if trained right, he would be able to even surpass her because of all the other DNA in his body. In this world, lineage was the most important after the mythical inheritance of wills. Amon has the first one now, and probably the second one too since he is the descendant of Calgera. So he was ready to go and become the king of the world. Actually, Big Mom's defense came from the skin-hardening technique she used, kind of like Tekai, but a stronger variant. But this wasn't a learnable skill. This was like those abilities that Judge's children have, basically a gene ability. Amon muttered to himself as he closed his eyes. And no wonder, he could feel his skin clenching themselves and getting hard, rock hard. Though I can't keep it passively yet. But at least I can move around with this skill turned on. It was almost like learning Tekai all over again. Either way, this is everything he got from the physical enhancement, STR and DF, a lot of it. He already had AGI before, so no need to worry about that. He was the master of one before, but now he was the jack of all trades and master of all, too. He could safely say he was now unkillable, no matter who the opponent was. That's not all, though. Muttering such, he threw the dumbbell away, which created a crater where he fell. He first looked at a corner of the room where a girl with horns on her head was eating fruits. Yo, Miss Yamato. The girl, Yamato, turned to him and dashed here. Yes. Help me test something. At her nod, he explained what he wanted her to do. Strike him with her strongest attack, without using Ryu or Conqueror's coding, of course. He was trying to test one of his defense techniques, but CC would make it useless. Okay. Yamato didn't question much. She also wanted to see how far this man was from her current self. So she raised her club over her shoulder and swung at him at full force, using her basic armament hockey to its highest degree. Z-Chim. Her club couldn't reach Amon. No, far from that. It stopped mid-air, clashing with the transparent barrier that came out of Amon's raised palm. I call this force field creation. He smiled softly and motioned at her, asking her to continue. His fruit awakened. The Goro Goro no Mi, or the Rumble Rumble fruit, whatever you call it, is easily the strongest Logia. That's why Amon had been so desperately trying to awaken it, because he knew, with just the awakening of this alone, he'd be able to surpass the monsters of this world. Normally, DF awakening happens when a user reaches the top of the general concept of a particular fruit, and just when the user tries to desperately reach beyond the general concept, the fruit awakens. The general concept of lighting was using it to shock and burn people, enhance speed, teleport, or just simply blast a bolt of lightning. That's all. Amon has done such things already. In fact, he's been using some of the advanced techniques too, like brainwashing by manipulating the electrical signals in the nervous system. Being a person from the 21st century, he had already met the criteria to awaken his fruit. He had realized this a long time ago. If so, what was the thing stopping his awakening? He found the answer to this question too. It's just that devil fruits have a chunk of power stored within them. Nobody can assess it from the get-go, and can only access it after the fruit awakens so that their bodies can be prepared for great power. So, if Gorogaro's awakening happened before the surgery, meaning before his body was strong enough to contain the surging power within his body, he'd have been overloaded with such power and he'd simply blown up. Amon didn't know, but after awakening, the fruit can be evolved further. Until now, the fruit just lent its previously stored power, but after this, it'd allow new powers that the user, Amon, would obtain, such as this one, force field creation. By manipulating the electromagnetic field in the air, Amon created a force field strong enough to withstand Yamato's strongest attack, not only once but 900 times. Huff, huff, huff. Yamato, who used all her strength to try and break the transparent barrier in front of her, panted hard. Just what's up with this? She yelled, not being able to contain it any longer. Just one of my new powers. Precisely, my second power after the awakening. It can block any attack as long as it has enough energy backing it up. Amon didn't say that he had basically limitless energy. Yamato wanted to ask what the first power was, but from the smile on Amon's face, it didn't seem like he'd answer it. Quaha. Amon laughed, knowing what she was thinking. People's thoughts were also clearer to him. It was, of course, bioelectricity manipulation, but she doesn't need to know that. Quahaha. Amon suddenly covered his face with his hand as another laughter left him. This time, the laughter was a bit weird. Although Yamato couldn't tell, Amon was feeling a little crazy. Not bad crazy, but good crazy. Maybe Big Mom's blood did affect him just like Raki said? It didn't matter though. He was sure this effect would soothe by time, but for now, he was feeling great, feeling all-powerful as happy hormones dominated his brain. Seeing Amon starting to laugh suddenly, Yamato stilled. Amon couldn't see, but from the outside perspective, he was looking mesmerizing. Image here. It was almost as if reality was playing itself. A god who's also a devil? Wait, wasn't he an angel too? Yamato thinned her lips. This man looked bewitching. She didn't know why he gave off a dangerous yet calming aura at the same time. Was he always like that? Just then, Amon stopped laughing. Can you hear me, miss? And suddenly a voice rang inside Yamato's head, causing her to jump up and look around. Huh, it's me. Look in front. Yamato slowly turned her head forward only to find Amon smiling with his arm raised in the air, almost as if he's calling for a certain hammer of lightning. What was that? Telepathy. Surprising Yamato, the window of the training hall shattered into bits as a black sword with shining black blade came flying into Amon's hand. Master, I was scared all of a sudden at what was pulling me. A voice left the sword causing Yamato to question her existence. Wait, why can a sword talk? That's for later. Amon raised his hand towards her. How about a duel? He really needed a punching bag to calm his crazy, or he might go crazy. Chapter 223, Electromagnetism. One of the four fundamental forces of the universe, and arguably the strongest among them as well. That's exactly what my Gorogaro Nomi can control now. Previously, I only had control over lightning and thunder, which was basically electricity powers with the bonus of a bit of sound generation ability. However, now all of that has evolved to this. Keep in mind, electricity and electromagnetism are two similar yet entirely different things. Not to be confused. I could control a bit of EM before, but that was so little that it shouldn't even be counted. For example, in the past I could mold gold and shape it in whatever way I desired. I could do it by messing with the electromagnetic bond of the gold, but I also needed the additional help of heat in such a case, but now, I wouldn't need it. I am honestly excited after this. I can do so many things with this alone now. I recall some truly powerful fictional characters whose main powers were based on electromagnetism, and now I had my hands on this too. There are many powers I know I can use by training and learning. Some of them are, well, godly, wormhole creation, molecular manipulation, solar wave manipulation, nuclear manipulation, and finally, electromagnetic warping. The last one is the one I am most excited about. Manipulating reality using the electromagnetic field that is present almost everywhere in the universe. This all sounds fictional, I am aware, but let's not forget this world itself is based on fiction as well. Though the thing is, I can't do any of the above-mentioned things, not yet. They are things that I can only do after decades, or maybe centuries of training. However, what I can do right this moment is more than enough for the emperors of the sea. It was then. Can you move? The woman who I was sitting above muttered. I looked down at Yamato, who was on the floor, lying face first, while I was sitting above her for whatever reason. What am I doing? Fucking fuck. Instincts? I guess nothing artificial is perfect. It seems I inherited the instincts of Wars and Big Mom, those two beasts. Not a bad thing, truth be told. I just need to make sure to not do silly things. I stood up from on top of her. My bad, Quahaha dash. I stopped again. Fuck. And would someone explain why I am laughing like this again? Fucking useless add-ons. Sigh. Just as I stood up, Yamato also slowly got up from below me and tidied her dress before looking at me with thin lips. I guess none of the strong people is fine in the head. I am fine in the head, right? Yes. I am sure I am fine. Probably. Also, she turned her face around her, eyeing the training hall. You should be careful of your attacks. Looking at where she was staring, at the training hall that was shattered as if a certain Whitebeard had smacked it with his trimmer fruit, I couldn't help but grin. With widened lips, I answered, not really. I have money. Every damage was done whilst training is tolerable. How did I cause such damage, UASL? Electromagnetism is everywhere, in the air, in the sky, and even in the exact space in front of us. So what if, using my fruit which now lets me see and touch the EM bonds present in the air, I just yank the bonds off with my bare hands? The space will collapse. That's what had happened. It's kinda like that move Whitebeard used in Marineford War, but I guess it's a little weaker. Anyway, I patted Yamato's shoulders, who wiped her bloody lips. I went kinda harsh on her with my fruit, yet she is pretty much fine. The regenerative powers of the Zoans, truly dangerous. That's why I want the best regenerative Zoan. That'd cover the only side I lack right now. Yamato, take a rest. I would suggest you be at your top condition considering what is about to come. Yamato looked a bit confused as I contemplated my actions for the Marineford War. A few days have passed since Amon officially dropped his humanity, and today, right now, at Sayobodi Archipelago, something important was happening. Cling. Dark King Rayleigh's sword clashed with Admiral Kazara's arm, his metallic left arm. My, Kazaro, haven't you changed your look since the last time we met? Kazara growled at Rayleigh, poking at his sore spot, but he just made his usual "oh" sound. It's all thanks to a certain someone, of course. He kicked Rayleigh, who simply dodged it by backing off a step. Rayleigh laughed at his words. To think that one kid he talked about hockey 6 years ago was strong enough to injure an admiral like this. Heh. A certain someone, you say? Yet I don't see any seriousness in your eyes. You haven't learned anything, have you? Rayleigh was half wrong and half right. Kazara wasn't serious, true, but that's because he didn't see this situation as something serious. However, his other statement, you haven't learned anything, irked Kazara. That was not right. He has learned a lot. He learned a lesson that finally forced him to let Dr. Vegapunk implant something in his brain that the 5 elders were asking him to implant for years. That'd assist his brain in surpassing its processing speed, thus giving Kazara a chance to overspeed Amon. He didn't feel like using it on small fries as it does have some drawbacks, so Kazara scoffed with a lazy smile. His eyes drifted far where Kuma was blowing a certain crew of straw hats in the air. You are good at buying time, Dark King. But Kazara then snapped his finger, causing a cloak of light to cover the area briefly before it returned to normal. Something flashed behind Kazara, but Rayleigh couldn't focus on it just as Kazara's metallic arm glowed golden, heating up. This was one of the killing techniques that he learned. I believe we've played enough. Let's finish this. Rayleigh simply chuckled. He could already see his attack's trajectory. And this same admiral once was known as the fastest man alive? Truly pathetic. As Kazara's heated red arm punched towards him, he simply kicked the ground to back off. However, shocking him to the core, he realized someone had just grabbed him from behind, restraining him. Oh, you go. Rayleigh turned behind to find another Kazara behind him who was restricting his movements while the first Kazara punched at him with the glowing arm of his. He soon realized what the flash behind Kazara was. It was his. Reflection. As the realization hit him, and as the metallic arm came closer to his face, Rayleigh's shocked face formed a smile. Heh. As the blinding light caused his vision to go white, the back of a man wearing a red captain's coat appeared in his vision, who turned to him and offered him a hand. It seems we are going to meet again. Roger. BOM. With the sound of a loud explosion, everything went white as a rare laugh left Kazara's lips. While Kazara was busy with Rayleigh, Bartholomew Kuma was also finishing his job. You. Luffy glared at Kuma, who simply walked closer to him with heavy steps. Luffy was on his knees, blood dripping from his injured right arm that was damaged by a certain Eustace kid. So he couldn't muster any strength. Why are you doing this to us? That was the last thing he could say before Kuma blasted him with one of his paws, just like his other crewmates, sending him somewhere, where he'd be safe and sound, and receive the chance to get stronger. And thus, the War of the Best was now one step ahead. Chapter 224. Execution. Port Asti. Ace's execution will be held in 3 days. Kaido had a large grin on his face as he read the headline of the newspaper this morning. Wurararo. The large barrel of wine smacked the ground and shattered under the crackling black lightning surrounding Kaido's fist. What would you do, old man? He asked towards the sky, addressing Whitebeard. Your son is gonna die. Would you sit still? Or would you jump at them and show them why you're called the strongest? He hoped it's the latter, because if so, he'd also get a chance to show. He'd be able to show who's stronger, the strongest beast or the strongest man. After all, there can't be a lion and a tiger in the same jungle. Fortunately, as far as Kaido was concerned, someone like Edward fucking Newgate would rush to the depths of hell if it concerned any of his son. So a war amongst Whitebeard pirates and the Marines is inevitable. Kaido was actually planning to go after Amon when he first heard about Big Mom's death. He was so infuriated, but somewhat around the same time, he learned about Ace being taken by the Marines from his information sources, so he decided against it. Amon was a brat. He can fight him later, but Whitebeard. Edward Newgate was a man. If he goes after Amon and receives an inevitable injury, that'd mean he won't be able to be the guy who would end that man's life. He didn't like that fact, so he controlled, he stayed patient, he convinced himself which was the better deal. He can always hunt down Amon after the war, right? But he might not get the chance to face Whitebeard ever again because he had a gut feeling that the old man was going there intending to die. Woraro. King. Kaido stood up, calling King, who appeared behind his throne, out of the shadows. We leave for Marineford right now. It'd take a bit of time since they will go slowly considering they don't want to waste their energy by flying too fast. At Kaido's words, King nodded, just when another deep and heavy voice flew in the room. Can I come too, Lord Kaido? Kaido turned to the broad and tall man, huge enough to reach his chest, who walked inside through the front door. It's you, Rio. Kaido looked down on him. Rio is a Skypiean who freed himself from Amon's ruling a few years ago by starting his journey as a pirate before joining the Beast Pirates via Jack later on, who died not long after that, giving Rio a chance to prove his worth and become one of the 3 calamities of Kaido. He's been greatly useful and helpful for the past few years. He is strong too. So Kaido thought over his proposal for a bit. I don't see a problem in that since you can fly fast. Kaido's confirmation caused Rio to nod while King eyed him with unreadable eyes. Follow me. No, I won't wait. Saying such, Kaido jumped out of the window and transformed, flying in the sky just as King, the wildfire, and Rio, the eruption followed suit. Luffy didn't expect to hear something this absurd after being sent to this island. Unlike the original timeline, this wasn't the Amazon Lily. After all, Dragon wouldn't risk sending his son to an island ruled by Amon. At first, when he fell to this unknown island after Kuma's paw bubble burst, he coincidentally met Bello Betty, the East Army commander of the Revolutionary Army, after looking around for a bit. Things weren't bad after that. He got to eat the meat of tasty sea kings, eat desserts, and sleep tight. Oh, he also learned that all his friends are at good places after Betty confirmed that Kuma and she were comrades at arms, and all of this was Monkey D, Dragon's plan. After that, Luffy learned about the Revolutionary Army a bit, and since now he knew Monkey D, Dragon was his father thanks to Garp, he felt much safer here since even if he never met his father, being under the protection of a blood was better than being at a random place. He didn't bother asking Betty about Dragon though, he simply didn't care. But of course, eating meat, sleeping tight, then waking up and continuing the cycle wouldn't make him the Pirate King. So he did bother Betty with his constant wish to see his crew ASAP. However, Betty kept refusing. This annoyed Luffy, so he at last tried to fight his way through. Betty being a woman didn't concern her. His fist didn't care about gender. Though surprisingly, Betty was super strong from a woman with a slim body and huge boobs. From his experience, girls with huge breasts are dumb. Nami, for example. But he can't stand it any longer. Betty, you don't understand. I need to be there. This wasn't about his crew. This was about his older brother, Port Asti, Ace. He wouldn't let anyone touch Ace as long as he was still breathing. You're the one who doesn't understand. Betty took a puff out of her cigarette. It's impossible for us to reach there in 3 days. It'd at least take 2 weeks for us to reach Marineford from here, in the New World. Luffy wanted to say something. No, he wanted to say a lot. But he couldn't find any words. He couldn't find any excuses. Betty doesn't have any reason to lie to him. And he for one knew how long it takes for one to travel from one island to another, and this was traveling from one part of the Grand Line to another. He couldn't blame anyone. He didn't yell this time and thinned his lips instead, a weak voice leaving him. Is there no other way? Luffy looked at Betty, his determined eyes glittered in wetness. If he couldn't reach Marineford and even try to save his older brother, then how would he ever become the Pirate King? But Betty sighed. If only Karasu was here. She was acting. Luffy didn't know, but Monkey D. Dragon could send him to Marineford in a second. No, less than a second. If we don't count Dragon, there is still Karasu, like Betty said, but he wasn't at this place right now. However, from his current location, it'd take him a mere hour or two to reach here. The reason why Betty was lying was because of the orders she received from her higher-ups. Monkey D. Dragon could see how the Battle of Marineford would end. By the time the battle starts, this won't be a battle between Whitebeard versus Marines. This would be the war between the Emperors of the Sea and the world government instead. This would be the biggest war since the one that happened 800 years ago. So who'd go to the war? Why don't we take the 3,000 super animals of Shiki Island? Oh, and Nola too. How about we bring all of God's army instead? Wait, why not both? Amon simply tapped the table once. That's enough. Everyone since sat around the round table stopped talking. We are not going to eradicate the Marines, no need to go that far. We are just showing them what we can do, not by quantity, but by quality. Raki raised her hand. Then dash. Amon raised his hand to stop her and continued. That means we'd only take our best. Meaning, me, the Sins, and the entire motor gang. Oh, and Miss Yamato as well. Serious question. Raki raised her hand slowly, praying he'd not stop her again. Since we are indeed going and not just you, does that mean we get to show off a little? Or would it just be you, Lou? Or are we just there to fill the player count? Amon considered her words. This indeed was a serious question. He hummed. Both. The meeting of the Sins was taking place in a room inside the Shrine of God. There. Raki was slightly wrong when she said to fill the player count dash, because just in the room beside it, multiple Amons were present. They were training. You think this is the way I should do it? You mean we? Just say it, dumb fuck. Try to move it reverse clockwise. They were conversing with each other as if they were different people. This would shock anyone. Anyone other than Doflamingo and Kizaru who could make clones using their devil fruits as well. Doflamingo did it in a very creative way. He first made a copy of his own body using his strings, even going as far as giving colors. After that, he connects his brain directly with the clone, using the same technique that he uses to control other people. Kizaru is different, kind of. He uses his light to reflect his body, which automatically creates a copy of himself along with the clothes he was wearing. Then he uses light solidification to make the intangible light tangible. However, Kizaru can't control his clone, or rather, his reflection, as accurately as Daffy since he can't control it with his mind directly. So he instead just manipulates its movements using his, well, light manipulation. Amon, on the other hand, does a mix of these two, in a sense, but it is more complex. In short, just like when Amon once learned to make different electrical objects using the art techniques taught by Robin, now Amon merely focuses his imagination, then forms a lookalike using his electricity, copying every detail of his body. After that, he uses something called electricity solidification, quite similar to Kizaru truthfully, which solidifies the usually tangible electricity. After that, things are easy since the clone almonds are made of pure electricity. Amon can control them with his brainwave, his neurons, directly. They're just external neurons at this point. The edge Amon had that the other two don't is exactly that. Kazara would be able to create thousands of clones, but not control even two. Daffy would be able to make a few properly functioning clones, but the number won't pass double digit. However, Amon can create clones on the triple digit yet leisurely control all of them. Now he was not a man, he was an army. On second thought, he has always been a one-man army. Chapter 225, The D Family. Monkey D, Garp stood straight on top of a rooftop in Marineford. Garp. He heard his friend, Sengoku's voice calling him, but he didn't turn back. I know how you're feeling, but you know, and so do I, this is just baiting for that old Whitebeard. Ace wouldn't actually be executed. We will just put him in and impel down, but he'd still live. Garp had to agree that he wanted to punch Sengoku right now, but he also had to agree that Sengoku held a valid point. As the marine hero, he at least had enough power to keep his grandson safe. The plan is, Ace would be stabbed in public with the two blades, however, the stab wouldn't be lethal. After that, Ace would be taken out of public and tend to his injuries, and then he'd be sent to impel down. Even the admirals weren't aware of this. There was no apparent issue with this plan, as long as nothing unforeseen occurred. His grandson would be fine. Monkey D, Garp had two choices, family or job, and he, in this timeline, had chosen both. There were only a few hours left until the execution, so Admiral Hina came to do his job and impel down. He was disgusted by the sin of filth, the sin of evil. A part of him wanted to bring down justice right here by drowning impel down in magma. Criminals such as these shouldn't even get the chance to stay under a roof. No, they shouldn't even be allowed to live. But he held on regardless. Unfortunately, the greater law didn't work with his own. If he breaks the greater law, the five elders will take care of him, and he couldn't let that happen since he wouldn't be able to bring any more justice if he died here. Move. He pushed the criminal walking slowly in front of him. Gold D. Ace, or his fake name, Portas D. Ace. He was the marine hero's adopted grandson. Good lord, this made his skin crawl. A great figure like Garp was nurturing a snake? This had instantly caused him to lose a large portion of respect for Garp. That man was a hypocrite. At his push, the criminal, Ace, almost fell on the ground, but Magellan grabbed him by the shoulder and helped him stand straight. Hina grumbled. Pathetic. The motherfucking Pirate King's son? This guy was a piece of weakling trash. He wanted to punch through his chest right at this moment. Right now, Nico Robin was at another place, far from Marineford, far from Skypia. She wore a white dress, if it can even be called that, with revealing cleavage and side boobs, along with a blue feather coat. Her hair was styled like canon post-time skip, as she had a sunglass resting on her head. She sat on a couch, her right hand resting on it. She came here with a gangster look, intending to intimidate the person, or rather, the duck, she came to meet here. Big news, Morgan. The Albatross Devil Fruit user. He's a special man, for many reasons. 1. He holds one of the most dangerous powers in this world, the media. This is something that Amon wanted, but couldn't get, because of the second reason. The Albatross is immune to brainwashing. It's as if his brain had gone through the attempt of brainwashing multiple times before, so Amon had no choice but to negotiate with him, instead. He tried forcing him before, threatening his life even, but none of them worked. The bird was simply too passionate about his job. He didn't want to write fake news, he didn't want to share his information source either. Amon would have normally killed the board. If a guy with such powers didn't join hands, he should have died. But Morgan had his uses, such as right now. Fufu, Mr. Morgan sure knows how to amuse his guests. Robin muttered as she took a sip of the tea, to which the duckman laughed hectically. Kuahahaha, please, don't flatter yourself. I am just being courteous. Though I am curious why Miss Nico Robin is here. Surely, you didn't come here for the tea. Robin nodded at him. Of course not. I am not free enough for that. Unfortunately, I have actual reasons to be here. Normally Lucy, Amon would have come by himself, but he's a little busy, you see. Robin giggled again, while Morgan grew nervous. What is so important that the Sky Emperor wanted to visit himself? Robin could see his concern, even through his duck-like expression, but she simply slipped her hand inside the pocket in her feather coat and took out a note. Please, read this. You'd know what I mean by the end of this. Soon, Big News Morgan would have a big news to write. However, this one would be fake. Just right then, Kaido, King, and Rio were flying above the red line. Everyone knows how big Red Loon is horizontally, but even horizontally, it was a few hundred kilometers long. King had a strange longing look as he flew above the red line, his old home. Linearians are a race created by mating the ancient Skypians and flame elves, the inhabitants of Moon 6, the aliens who can use fire-type abilities. The beginning of this race was an experiment by the ancient winged race to create strong slaves, so they married their people with the flame elves, thus causing the birth of Linearians. After that, as the Linearians served the winged race for centuries as slaves, they finally decided to fly down to the blue planet. There, they were worshipped as gods. No, they played God because they were the strongest. Of course, none of the above-mentioned things was known by King. Currently, only Amon knew this because of Seraph, the AI. That's not the point, though. The point right now is, it seems soon, very soon, the Linearians would return to their original place. No, they won't become the rules of this world again. Rather, they become the slaves of Skypians, because... Just then, crack. The distinguishable sound of advanced conqueror's haki rang in the air, causing King to alert himself, but before he could realize anything, a painful jab fell on his neck as he flung downwards to the red line, his home. At the same time, Rio was also falling with him, and the only one in the sky was Kaido. However, not even 5 seconds later, the large body of Kaido smashed downwards along with him. By the time they crashed into the red ground, which didn't cause the red line to even bend surprisingly, dust filled the air, and as it cleared up, the figure of a one-handed red-haired Shanks entered their eyes. The man stood with a single sword in his hand as he started at Kaido, who had turned into his human form. None of them even gave Rio or King a glance. Kaido, I gotta stop you here. Go back. A grinding laugh left his throat. Wororaro. You wish. At an instant, Kaido kicked the ground, his club on his hand, as he rushed to Shanks, who simply took a stance with his sword. Rio and King wanted to intervene. Well, King did. Rio didn't have any intention to die here, but before King could, he felt a metallic pipe pressing down on his skull from above his suit. Puff. The smoke of a cigarette covered his vision. Don't move, fallen god. Beckman started at King's glaring eyes nonchalantly. All the while, a real god was looking over the fight that was taking place in the ground of old gods. God King Amon stood above a fleeting cloud as the shining red eyes observed the battle. He needs to make sure Kaido reaches there, so a fight with Shanks is inevitable. That's the end of this tale for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in part 10. Peace.